Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. We do have a quorum, so thank you for joining us this evening. I am Becky Tuttle, and it's my privilege and honor to serve on the City Council for District 2. This is the District 2 Advisory Board meeting for Monday, December 11, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. We have District Advisory Board members all to my left, strangely this evening. And then we have two who are joining us remotely, and the third one will be coming soon. So as I mentioned, so we're going to go ahead and get started. One of the things that we always do at our district advisory board meeting is we have the district advisory board members, and if we need chairs, there's more chairs we can take. If not, we can pull these around and let somebody use them. Are there still extra chairs?
All the chairs are out. There's a few of them that are empty. There's a couple empty. If we need to pull more, are there more in the closet, or is that it?
No, there's no.
Leave them.
Okay. For the sake of time. So we'll have district advisory board members introduce themselves, and so as always, your name, neighborhood you represent, and your favorite thing about Wichita, and you're going to repeat something anybody else said. John, you want to start?
Sure.
Thank you.
Don Baker, I'm at a association. I attended Botanica the other night. Nations and great event.
Martin, I represent the neighborhood, Eastern Neighborhood Association, and I noticed Bruce and I are both wearing Red Cross shirts tonight. So my favorite thing about Wichita is when there's a blood drive, people will start to show up. So just go ahead.
I'm Jennifer McDonald. I represent Dublin Court. There's south at 29th on Market Street. One of my favorite things about Wichita kind of this month is all of the fun, festive events and performances that happen at Section 2 December. So this weekend they're having the Valley Wichita's 39th annual Nutcracker. So we encourage people to go out and see it.
Tim Johnson, I represent the Willow Bend neighborhood at 37 North Rock. Tonight I want to celebrate Wichita State University volleyball team and their success.
Thank you. How about Chris?
Hey, hello, Chris Broderick from near 37th and Woodlawn Northbrook neighborhood. And staying close by there, I really enjoy the Great Plains Nature Center, going to walk, and this time of year you can see a lot of wildlife.
Thank you. How about Tracy?
Hi, good evening. Tracy Adams, representing the Harrison Park area. And so I'm a little late, and I don't know if this has already been said, but my favorite thing is illuminations, the Botanica illuminations.
It's good enough. We'll give you the free pass. All right. Last but not least, Mr. Bruce.
Hi, everybody. I am Bruce Gass. I represent the Chisholm Creek HOA. I've been on these kinds of boards about 14 years now. And reading Becky's newsletter, my favorite thing about Wichita is the new homeless shelters that are up and running.
Thank you. Thank you. Teresa, we always forget you, and I'm sorry. So I'm committed.
Okay,
to not
sorry.
tonight.
I'm Teresa Beasy. I'm your community services representative for District 2. And one of my favorite things about Wichita is seeing a great crowd.
Yeah.
And District Advisory Board. So thank you all for being here.
Awesome. Thank you. How many folks are here this evening for the East Kellogg agenda items? Okay. So with that being said, sorry, there's maybe a little snafu in the order that we did this. So I would entertain a motion regarding tonight's agenda. Tim, would you help me out?
Certainly, I would move that we relocate agenda items 12 to agenda item number 8.
Second by Jennifer. All those in favor from the district advisory board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Anyone opposed? Fantastic. Item passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the minutes from November 13th, 2023. Did everybody have a chance to review the wonderful minutes that Drew prepared for us?
Yes, thank you for capturing all the comments. I really
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
move we accept.
Okay, thank you. How about Bruce? Would you be a second? We got a.
Sure.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone need to abstain because they weren't here last time? Okay, perfect. Passage unanimous. Next is we have a scheduled item. Mr. Fred Panera has asked that he do a presentation this evening. So Fred, if you want to come and join us, and if you can just make sure that you give us your name, and I think we already have your address on the agenda, so thank you very much. And Tim is going to start at the time for this evening, and if you have about 3 minutes just to let the district advisory board hear your comments. As we discussed, this is not an agenda item, so there's not actually a vote. If anybody wants to ask any questions, we sure can. But when I give anybody in the community who wants to have an opportunity to let us know what you think, we're happy to hear it. So with that, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
So can I ask a question before my time screen?
Sure, of course.
So it's all the material that I provided.
Yes.
previously?
Yes, Teresa sent the information out.
Okay, so 3 minutes is not really enough time to talk about what I have to say.
And Mr. Green, can you speak a little louder?
I can.
Thank you.
3 minutes is not nearly enough time to talk about what I have to say, so I'm counting on you all to ask me lots of questions, because I have a lot of things I want to tell you. But one of the main things is, for those of you who are here for other matters, you didn't, I say, there is an ordinance in Wichita where you cannot park on a public street in front of your house for more than 48 hours at a time. How many of you know about that? Did you know you cannot park your own car in your own for more than 48 hours at a time? One person knows that. And the situation is, if you would go ahead, Teresa, go to the next picture where okay, this is my truck. This is in front of my house, looking out the front door. My house faces the west. Across the street, you see that van. And here, I came home one day and found this on the windshield of my truck. And that van that you saw also had one. And there it is again. And one thing I take exception to the 48-hour rule. The other thing is the green sticker that they put on it. It took me more than 20 minutes with the razor blade to spray it off. It's pitiful. If you have, that's what it looks like when it's done. I didn't send the picture with my blood. So my first problem is the ordinance in and of itself. It's not clear about what you can do other than move the vehicle. It says specifically, moving it forward a few feet is not acceptable. You have to move it down to another block. I live on a corner street. You have my back. I live on a corner street. And there it is. I'm at the top there. I should have marked it somehow. But I'm on a court, so I've got room in front of my house for 4 vehicles. I've got room on the side of my house for 4 vehicles. But I'm not permitted to park for more than 48 hours. Also, I drive a company vehicle during the week. And when I park it at 5 o'clock on Friday, I don't get back in until Monday morning at 7. That's more than 48 hours. Am I supposed to go out and move it? And if I do, I have to move it somewhere besides in front of my house. It doesn't say in the ordinance how long it has to be moved for. And there's no measurement that says, it has to be done for 30 minutes or 60 minutes or an hour. So, and my question is this, is how do they know how long it's been there anyway? I was told, one gentleman, that if the windshield's dirty, that's a sign that it's not been driven. Or if tires are flat, or if there's weeds growing up around it. And none of that's true. Well, my windshield does get dirty. I grew up in the country, 40-some years in the country. And when I was a young man, and I still am, I would get my car washed every Saturday night before I picked up my date. I didn't like driving a daily car. And it's appalling to me that I've lived there for 17 years, how dirty my truck can get just sitting there. Whether it's just sitting there for a day or 2 days or 4 days, it doesn't matter. So I believe that first of all, the green speaker has to go away. There could have been an effort made by community policing to inform me of the problem, instead of just slapping that thing on there. And the second thing is, I'm not going to discredit the police or the officers involved. And, but they didn't really understand the ordinance themselves, because I was told that I couldn't have a company vehicle there but for 2 hours. That's not quite true. If you read the ordinance, find out that it's also allowed 48 hours. Because it's an F-150 pickup. Now, you can see it in the driveway there. When I took these pictures, I only hadn't parked in the driveway. The driveway enters into Mount Vernon Main Street. And my garage is not big enough to put my wife's car and my pickup in it at the same time. My house was built in the 80s, but for goodness sake, I don't understand. Mount Vernon can be a very busy street. When I back out of the garage, I don't want to have cars parked on the side on Mount Vernon that eliminates our view of the scene. Apparently, and that's the point. The point is, the neighbor complained about the cars. They complained about their neighbor's car too. And my understanding is, it wasn't the big deal was 48 hours. The big deal was visibility. I like to park them where I can see them from my front window for safety reasons. They're both F-150 pickups. If you've ever heard stories about catalytic converters, they love them F-150s. I have security lighting in that part of the ski house. That's where I want it to be. We run 5 minutes, 40 seconds, and other specific things that you would like us to take under consideration to share with.
And we've had staff
Council.
communicate with you, but I'd be happy to set up another meeting and have WPD and you and I sit down together. Would that be okay?
Well, community places do talk to me for 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
they sure do. We knew each other. Just when they're trying to be it, but it's still the idea that. Still, the idea that, you know, I've thought myself to be a law-abiding citizen. I lived in Kansas. I've lived at this address for 16 years. And, you know, and Councilman knows for sure that I tell him all the time, when I see issues in the neighborhood. Serious issues, serious issues.
Yeah.
This is not a serious issue.
And the genesis of it is one of your neighbors complained, and so the police had to respond.
Correct.
So how about this for your time and for our other guests who are here this evening? How about Teresa and we get with PD and you and I meet with Mr. Canary? Can we reach out to you tomorrow and schedule a time? Does anyone on the district advisory board have any questions for Mr. Canary? Anybody online?
I'd like to say something too. I live across the street from him, okay?
He's the other guy.
The same time they could tap his car,
Would you like to be at the meeting as well, sir?
yes ma'am.
Okay, can I ask you a favor? Can you come to Teresa and get your phone number and your name? And we'll make sure that the 3 of us and police meet. Would that work?
Yes,
Okay, and we'll do it at your convenience. I'll come to you. We can do it in the evening, weekends, days, whatever works best for you. Okay, if you'll just get Teresa your name and telephone number. Thank you, Mr. Canary. Appreciate you being here. You're a very engaged and active community member, and I really respect and appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, we'll be meeting soon. Thank you, sir. Okay, the next agenda item is off agenda item. Is there anybody who's here this evening to speak on the item that isn't on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move right along and we're gonna go into staff reports. And we're gonna give Teresa just a sec to get the screen pulled up. Okay, get him safe. Thank you, sir. We'll talk soon. Okay. Have a good evening. Get him safe. All right. WPD. Who do we have to? Officer? If you wanna take it off mute, and if you have to report, I know you emailed us something, but, thank you for your service, thank you for being here this evening, anything you'd like to share, we have a room full of people for you this evening.
Wonderful. Yes, I'm Officer McWayne with Patrol East Community Policing Unit. You guys got an email from, I think, Officer Grinley at North. So just to go over some crime stats out east, violent crimes are down 13% from last year at this time of year, so that's always good. We like to see that. Property crimes for this time of year are up 4%, and it is getting colder, so we just want to remind people, don't leave your keys or valuables in your car, and in the morning, I know it's tough with this colder weather, but please do not go out and warm your car up and go back inside. If you're going to warm your car up, bundle up and stay out there with it, please. We want you to keep your property as much as you guys do. In terms of crime, other than those few property crimes that are on the rise, auto theft being the main one, everything is dipped down and is lower than usual. Patrol East, a couple of things about us and what we're doing. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we have a theft assignment that we are working on at some retail stores, and we will be arresting some theft offenders, and those stats and where we are doing that will be released later this week. And then next week we are doing taking money we raised from the golf tournament earlier this year, where we raised $20,000, and we're taking some families shopping at Walmart next Monday and Tuesday. And we're going to take about 8 families and spend some money on them that have been submitted to us through our schools. And that's pretty much what we are going to be doing to wrap up the year.
Any questions from the district advisory board members? Anyone online have any questions? Bruce, Alicia, Tracy, Chris?
I do.
Yes.
Officer, could you, for the sake of our audience tonight, could you explain your view of the laws of public parking on public streets?
I'm actually going to be the one that'll be in that meeting because I am the one that did that sticker. I'm the one that the complaint came to, and me and Mr. Panera actually had a 45-minute conversation about it. Mrs. Tuttle, if you want me to speak on that now.
You can if you'd like to briefly. It is a situation with a resident, so I know we will be addressing it individually, so I am hesitant to share too much of his case, if you will, or his scenario, but would you just explain to Bruce and to everyone else here what the actual ordinance, or it's 48 hours, and how about you, instead of your opinion or editorializing on this specific issue, maybe just what's the law and why do we have it?
Yeah, and to answer that question, and like I told Fred, my opinion necessarily doesn't matter in this case. The ordinances and laws are set forth, and it's my job to enforce them. And I want to ensure everybody that we are far too busy to go out and just look for cars that we think are abandoned. We don't do that, and like I explained to Mr. Panera, I never want to take anybody's property. So if I do get a neighborhood complaint, even though it is your car and your property and maybe the ordinance you disagree with, well, somebody is making that complaint because and has a valid complaint sometimes, and we do check into those things. So the 48 hours thing is to make sure that people's cars aren't going to sit there forever, and I get sometimes cars aren't abandoned and aren't driven during the week and are driven on weekends. And as far as once they move every 48 hours, if you go to Quick Trip or you go to Dillon's or Walmart or just go to a friend's house for a little bit and you're gone for 20 or 30 minutes and you come back and it's been driven, that negates that 48 hours and then it starts over. There is no real set time limit on how long your car has to be gone. But if you were to strictly just move it from in front of your house, unfortunately, the ordinance does say it can't be moved in the same block. And what that means is the 100th block. So if you live at 9400 East, you would have to move it to 95 or 9300 East, if that makes sense.
Bruce, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. If I take my car to the Quick Trip and come back, who is going to know that I moved it?
Sure.
So let's suppose I park it in the same place but facing the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a violation?
Are you talking about left wheels to curb?
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, you can't park left wheels to curb. It, and again, you're right. No one is going to know that but you. But again, it's like some of the things we look for is the rusted rotors. Is there dust, debris buildup underneath? I mean, does it appear like the car isn't being driven? I ride with a partner every day. We always run things by each other. So you're getting two opinions before we do things. So if none of those things exist, I may knock on your door and say, hey, I got a complaint on this, and then you're going to negate that by saying, I just left for Quick Trip 30 minutes ago. If I come out and your car clearly appears like it hasn't been driven, then it will get a sticker.
so at this time, there's no part of that law that requires the city to call the resident about that truck. It's all goes right to you guys.
Like
I mean,
a
you can look up
neighborhood
the
complaint?
plate number and call the people, right?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I think I spoke over you.
I'm sorry. You guys can look up the plate number and you can call the resident. I wonder if that could be part of the process.
Yeah, and that's something that would have to be ran up the chain. As of right now, our notice to citizens is the green sticker. Because I could take a note in a notepad and say this without notifying you at all, and that wouldn't be fair, and then come back and tow your vehicle. So our notice to you guys is the green sticker. And I would not be opposed to that. But when I have 30 of them and then trying to get a hold of people before I sticker cars, that would make for a very long day and a long process. And I get the concern. And maybe that is something that could be implemented. I'm not sure. That's way above my head.
Thank you. Thank you.
You. And officer, we can discuss it more when we have our conversation with Fred and the neighbor.
Yes, ma'am. Just let me know and I will be there.
Okay. Well, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us this evening, and please be safe.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Fire department is sending their report. There's an issue they have to deal with. And so John with Park and Rec.
Good evening.
Hey, John.
How's it going? Happy holidays, everybody. And since it's that time of year when the kids are getting out of school, we have some options for you to drop them off and do some entertaining camps, particularly at Boston. On the December 18th, we have Messy Science. December 20th, we have a Nerf Wars camp. On December 22nd, they can be little junior chefs for the day. And then on December 26th, we're playing some funky twisted sports games. And on December 29th, we're putting our brains together and making a Lego city. So for a Lego Mania camp. So if you're looking for any care, that's one of the options that Park and Rec provides. And then also currently the Watson Christmas Express at OJ Watson Park is still going on until December 23rd. It's for ages 2+ and it runs on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. You can buy your ticket early for a VIP package, or you can pay $18 per person. And if a child signed up, a parent has to be signed up as well and pay registration as well. Then this last weekend, hopefully, some of you guys were able to make it out to our Winter Wonderland event at Napster Park. It was kind of a up and rainy day at first, and then it kind of second half of the portion, it kind of mellowed out for us. People got the opportunities to eat cookies and make s'mores, visit Mr. and Mrs. Claus, have some hot chocolate, and there were some live singing performances. Photo booth options, letters to Santa. And then of course the event always starts with the mayor flipping the switch to light the mayor's tree. So hopefully next year, if you were unable to make it this year, we can see you out there next year. And then also currently coming up, we have our Miracle League Bowling. For those of you that don't know, our Miracle League Bowling, or Miracle League in general, is set for individuals with special needs. For ages 5 to 25-year-olds. For this bowling league, it's $25 per person. Games are held on Saturdays at 10 a.m., starting January 6th and going through the 27th. And you have till the 18th to sign up for that. So if you know anyone, that might be interested or that has special needs, send them to rec center and then get you signed up for that. And then also, I'm excited to announce that the East Ridge neighborhood will start having their monthly meetings at Boston Rec Center. Looks like starting up in the spring. So that will be nice to have them back in the building, to where we can kind of be a little more involved with each other. And then, as far as Boston Rec Center, where there's a couple capital improvement projects that are going on. In January, hopefully we'll have some security cameras that will be installed inside the building in the park, in certain spots. And then we're also on the list for a new roof and new floor plan, new flooring inside. So, and then of course our new tenant create campaign is in the process of moving in, and hopefully soon we'll be up and running full scale, providing the services to the community. So that's it.
That's a lot. Great, John. Great. You always do it with such enthusiasm. I appreciate it. Does anyone online have any questions for John? Bruce?
Yes, John, a year or maybe 2 years ago, there was a break-in and where the locomotive was housed. And I just wondered if there has been some significant security measures taken to prevent that.
You know what? If there has, I do not know if they've, what they've done differently, but obviously we haven't had the issue here recently. But it's definitely something I can, see, what differences have made, to where vandalism hasn't been an issue in the last couple of years, and I can report that back to you.
I sure appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions from DAB members here? Okay. Thank you, John. Happy holidays, and thanks for all you do.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye. Okay, next, library report. And we are Santa's favorite library right here in Rockwell. And why is that? We're the only library in City of Wichita that has a fireplace.
So good evening, everyone. My name is John Clary. I'm the branch manager here at the Rockwell Library. My favorite thing about Wichita, besides the Wichita Public Library, is I love the Wichita Art Museum. It's a world-class museum and has wonderful stuff. Free admission on Saturday, so check it out.
Teresa, you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Totally on board.
And I'd like to just share a few things that's going on in the Midwest Library for the month of December. So the Wichita Public Library will be adding 3 new library cards to its selection for customers to choose from this winter. But first, residents need to help narrow their favorite designs down to the top 2 favorites. Along with social media polls throughout this month, residents can vote for their favorite in the kid, teen, and adult categories online. And more information is available at wichitalibrary.org/card design. While kids and teens are out of school for the holiday break, the Wichita Public Library has a great schedule of free programs to participate in. They include make and take crafts, video games, cocoa and painting, and lots more. You can view the complete online schedule at wichitalibrary.org/events. Some information about our Westlink branch remodel and expansion project. Key Construction has been selected as the contractor for the project, and we will be announcing a groundbreaking date very soon on social media once it is determined. Once they start, it's expected to take about 10 to 12 months for the Westlink branch model to be completed. They're going to be doubling the space, and it's going to be a first-class library for the Westsiders. Information about our Angelou branches and our Walters branch. Or the Angelou branch is near Wichita State at 21st and Hillside. They are expanding their opening hours from 27 to 31 hours per week. And they'll be closed on Mondays, but they'll be open Tuesdays through Thursdays from 1 to 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 1 to 6 p.m. and closed Sunday. Our Walters branch, which is our newest one in the city, located near the old Wichita Mall on East Perry. They are going to be expanding from 35 hours a week to 40 hours a week. They will be open Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. They will be closed Sunday. Check out your new branch library.
I'm glad to hear they're gonna be open Saturday. That's a great addition. Fantastic.
any questions that I can answer.
Seeing none, thank you very much. John.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for all you
Happy
do. We
holidays.
appreciate it. Happy holidays to you. Okay, because of the agenda change, we are now going to go to new business, but item 12 is now item 8. And so 143rd Street East, Kellogg is Perry, and we had James Wagner, our civil engineer with Public Works and Utilities, who is here to present.
What's left? Yeah, all the way to the east. Sort of, one step inside. All right. My name is James Wagner. I'm the Special Projects Engineer for the City of Wichita Engineering Department. I've got some introductions to make here, but we're here to talk about 143rd Street from Kellogg to Harry. We have with us Sean Melius. He's in the back here. He's the design engineer for the City of Wichita. We have a couple guys from Garver here, Ken Lee, Eric, sorry. Whoever, I apologize. Anyway, so Garver is part of our design team. They were selected by committee to help design the project. They are also part of the committee or part of the group that's doing some of the work with Kellogg, and that coordination between the Kellogg project and this project is going to happen with Garver on board. They're also familiar with the area. They've done some design work for some of our major roadways in this area as well in the past. So moving forward. So a little bit of background here. June 6, 2023, the City of Wichita approved an agreement with Garver to design improvements for 143rd Street from Kellogg to Harry Street. So that's to come up with our concepts, which we are presenting today. We are not under full design until we get approval through the DAB and then through City Council to do that. There's been some questions about how that works. So we're not under design until we get those started and gone through council. And that was on the agenda letter for January. Here's a slide that shows kind of the outline of our project. We did have the open house here earlier that showed a little bit, but the red line is the actual impact area for our project to a certain degree of accuracy. I will point out a little bit here. There we go. This portion of the project is part of what KDOT is doing. So I don't have all the answers for everything that KDOT is doing up to that section. I apologize. We are coordinating with them, but some of the stuff that they are doing is not the same as what we are doing. So we're not here to discuss the mainline Kellogg project either. We don't have all the information. We're going to be able to give you on that as well. So some of the things I'm going to point out to you here while we have this big graphic up are a few things here. One of the things that's going to make this project a little bit difficult and kind of where some of this stuff is coming from is the north-south infrastructure in this area is Greenwich, 127th, and then 143rd, 159th or County Line Road, whatever you want to call it, and then Andover Road. This County Line Road jogs a little bit and has a low water crossing right here, which can flood. And so that presents a little bit of a problem for us doing any type of traffic control through this area. And then 127th also comes up here and jogs and doesn't really have a eastbound type connection until you go all the way back here and do a loop. So it's not ideal to get in and out through 127th or the 159th area. So you're left with in a 5-mile stretch there, or 4-mile, 5-mile line roads, 3 of them that are essentially going to take all of your traffic. 143rd happens to be in the middle. That's going to be key on how we're basing some of our projections for traffic in the future in this area and why we're designing for a 5-lane roadway. And so I'll go over that a little bit more in detail in just a second. But that is part of the key. There's not a really good way to get through and through this area and then through this area. And so you're left with just this area to distribute all of the improved traffic that you're going to be getting on Kellogg. So that is part of our design. So 143rd Street East is, currently it's a 2-lane asphalt mat road with ditches and no sidewalks. Our proposed concept changes that from a 2-lane to a 5-lane roadway with a center turn lane, improved storm sewers, curb and gutter, a 10-foot wide multi-use path on the west side of the road, and a 6-foot sidewalk on the east side. That's a lot more pavement than what's there now. I know it's a lot for some people to swallow, but again, this is how we're coming to our decision on this. Part of what we're doing for all this, part of our standard design for our roadways is to include sidewalks on both sides. And then if we're not doing anything for separated bike lanes on the street, try to upgrade one of the sidewalks to a 10-foot path. So that is our standard design. That is why we're doing sidewalks and a 10-foot wide path on this project as well. And the last thing here, we are going to improve the signals and the geometrics at Harry Street for the intersection. So that will be an improved intersection with no more of the wired signals and everything up there. So for those that aren't, I'm sure most people are interested or are fairly familiar with what's going on here, but anybody that's not, sorry, I punched the wrong button. This is what we had: 2-lane asphalt mat with our ditches and no sidewalks. Again, here's your Harry Street intersection that has all this kind of a mess up here in the air for signals, and then no improvements here. They are turn lanes, but you'll see in a little bit how we're going to make the improvements there for the geometrics. One of the things that's not really well covered on this is there at the Spring Branch Creek, there is a failed weir down here. Essentially, failed means that this water could go right by this. It's doing absolutely nothing right now. And what it does is it actually has problematic effects with the floodplain area. And it's also washing out this bank over here. Our goal for this project is to take out this weir and do some improvements to this bank here a little bit so that we can do stuff. We can build our bridge and not have any floodplain requirements. Currently, it serves no purpose the way it's at right now. Has no function. So for those that weren't here earlier, this is our proposed concept for the project. Our project starts right there at Lakeside Drive. To the north is what KDOT is doing. I don't have all the answers there. I do have a little bit of a slide here that shows what was proposed earlier. I don't know if that's still the same with what KDOT's doing, but we have a slide here to show kind of what their proposal is. In our respect, we are doing a 5-lane roadway. This is a center turn lane down the middle, 2 lanes north and south both, and then on this side of the road is a 10-foot path, and then on this side of the road is a 6-foot sidewalk. Again, here's your Harry Street intersection. We're showing new signals there, turn lanes, and the one other thing here is this bridge. We are going to widen that bridge out to accommodate the lanes of traffic. This is our standard kind of design for a project. Our center turn lane here is a 12-foot lane. This is where people can turn in and go left without having to risk people getting rear-ended or that type of thing. We know for a fact through research that this increases safety on a roadway by the rear end accidents drop way low for those left-hand turners. So you don't ever have to worry about, as long as somebody's utilizing that lane, you don't have to worry about people stopping in front of you and getting their rear end. Then north and south both two lanes each, 11-foot lanes, 2.5-foot curb and gutter, then sidewalk on one side, and then the 10-foot multi-use path on the other. We do show a little bit of green space that varies. We don't know exactly what that is right now, but the wide open ditches are going to be gone. Those all get filled in, and so there will be more pavement out there than what's out there right now. Our intersection shows here. We are having dedicated left and right turns here for the intersection. It's a concrete intersection starting right there, right there, right there, right there. So we'll be getting rid of the wired signals and going with metal pole signals, crosswalks, concrete pavement, and then dedicated turn lanes for for a little bit better traffic movements.
And I'll interject on that. The reason why we do the concrete is when vehicles are slowing down, speeding up and that kind of thing, you don't have the rutting that you sometimes see in asphalt. So the city has extended out that asphalt or the concrete pavement a little further to try and promote a better longevity in the intersection.
Okay, sorry. Here we go. So here is what we're talking about with the bridge widening. We're going to a 4-lane bridge. We are not doing a center lane through there. There should not be any turning lefts through there. I hope nobody's turning left through there. We are going to be extending that so that and include a side path here that's 10 foot and a sidewalk that's 6 foot. Up here you can show we'll be slicing off the edge of the bridge rail and then extending that on each side to accommodate those 4-foot shoulders. Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. Will those still be draining into the lakes in that area?
What's that?
The water from that area, will it still be draining into the lakes in that area? Timber lakes?
Well, so this is the south one. This is close to Harry Street.
Right.
So there's essentially, we're not changing anything with the drainage on the creek itself. The creek just goes right on through. All we're doing is widening it so that we can add the sidewalks and such and the extended lanes that we need and the extended width to get cars 2 lanes of traffic each direction. So it's really not changing much. Yes.
I think what he's asking is the storm sewer gonna drain into this creek or is it gonna be carried somewhere else?
That is what I'm asking.
Okay, sorry. So there are some creeks in the area that we are, I'm assuming draining to. They're currently the drainage goes to those areas and that's.
Long story short, we're not changing any drainage patterns. Wherever the water drains today, it's gonna drain when we're done. It'll drain differently through storm sewer, but it'll be drained in the same spot.
Okay, so it'll still go to the lakes behind it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, is
Thank
your
you.
center line, say on your left turn lane, or in this case, the 4, is it the same center line that we've got now, or is it gonna move left or right some distance?
So specifically on the bridge, the center line is going to stay at the center of the bridge. So
Okay.
but throughout the project, I'll go back here a little bit. It's a little bit difficult to see. What we have is we have a jog at Lincoln Street,
Okay,
where the right of way shifts. And so we are actually shifting the road, right? You can see right here.
right to the west,
Yeah, so the road shifts a little bit to the west here because the right of way does.
okay,
And so, and this is the thing throughout the project. We are gonna have the center line of the road in the center turn lane. So it's gonna be drained from to the outside, but the roadway is not gonna be perfectly straight. It will have a slight jog. And then it jogs a little bit down here at this end as well to line up with damp stuff that's south here. But it's not gonna be like you're gonna have to, take it on 2 wheels like a racetrack or anything like that. It'll be mild. Yes.
They're gonna be a brand new bridge and you're gonna rework the existing.
So I'll go back to the bridge, but it's not gonna be all brand new. What can I do? Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
You talked about cutting railings, so I just wondering.
So if you look here, right here, this is essentially what's gonna be left of the bridge. The rail's gonna be about right here, right now. So we're gonna cut those railings off and then we're gonna extend it, add new railings out here and then the multi-use pad on
You'll
the
probably
edges.
demo the rear wall.
Yeah, so we'll be adding width. But the main, it's still a good bridge. The main line portion of it's going to stay and it will carry traffic while we're under construction.
James, I wanna ask a follow-up to this drainage. You're gonna want to double the impermeable area.
We are.
Existing stream, are there plans for detention so as not to overload the existing?
There. So essentially what you have right now is it's all draining into the ditches and then draining into the waterways right there.
At a much slower rate than it will.
Can I
address that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So let me address that. So we will be putting in storm sewer. We're gonna be dumping, there will be more runoff. But with the storm sewer, what ends up happening is it will run off more quickly. And when you have large tributaries like this with large upstream areas, it's actually beneficial to get the water out of there than to retain it. Because if you retain it, you actually hold it where that water that's upstream, if you try and slow it down, you actually make it worse because then you're releasing it at the same time that upstream drainage comes in. So it's actually beneficial to just let it go in this situation. If we had a downstream property owner that was gonna be negatively impacted by it, where we were raising the runoff rate, we would look at detention on it, but typically on these projects, we don't end up incorporating any detention because it would actually be harmful to people downstream. if we
That's
did
what
that.
I wanted to hear, because you're gonna have one, and it's gonna be moved clear.
Yeah, so the combination of the two, I don't wanna go into too much detail, but there's hydrographs and those kind of things. The way the water runs off, you just don't wanna create a larger stack.
You got a plan, that's what.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So the Springdale Country Club Improvement District, which is on the east side of of this road, 143rd, there's 4 ponds in there. Currently 1,900 acres flows into those ponds, and they'll put 4 houses underwater on a typical rainstorm today. If you add all that impervious paving, not only from KDOT and from this, you're adding a lot of extra runoff to those things that aren't designed to handle it. Twin Lake, there's Twin Lake Street. It goes down to a low water crossing and it's impassable in May. And so just by adding this impervious paving, slowing down this water or increasing the water runoff, you're gonna be a detriment to this neighborhood. We have hundreds of videos we'd love to show you.
Okay.
Yeah, just in October, it was flooded, and it's impassable.
Completely impassable, which leaves only one exit out, which is Edgewater Street. Everybody east of the ponds can't get out except for one way when that happens.
Well, as Kent said, a lot of the impervious stuff that we've got out here is gonna drain a lot quicker. And so what you're saying to me is you have 1,900 acres that's draining very slowly to this area and then it's flooding. So what we're planning on doing is getting more of it faster so that maybe a little bit can get drained ahead of time. So we might actually see a marginal improvement, but as Kent said, from what we've seen from hydrology, we are not going to be increasing.
I don't
the
know the
overall
speed of the drainage, but I know that in 2019, we paid MKC to do a drainage study of this area. So, I mean, we'd be glad to share it with you.
We'll take it. I have a card here or back here on the table if there's still a stack.
Right now, all the grass will take part of that, the ground. But you put concrete there, it can't absorb any of it.
I'm gonna have to keep going here, guys, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So here's what I had last from KDOT's project. It's a little bit convoluted. This is not our design, it's not part of our contract. KDOT controls all of this, they are the ones managing this. And I do not have any answers for you guys as far as impacts to your own property. But I have contacts with KDOT. If you are involved with some of this, we can get you to the right people to discuss this. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question, speed limit, is it going to change on 143rd?
Currently, the speed limit is 40.
Yes.
Our standard would be to stay with that unless there's a reason to do otherwise.
Well, I mean, I would think that the 40 will change and be so much faster with these lanes of traffic now. I would think that we would need big speed study. I mean, the buses don't even go 40. No. The buses are going 50, 55. At 7 a.m. in the morning. So if they have, I mean, that's easily found out. I mean, so if they have free lane, I mean, if they have these open lanes of traffic, I would like to see that maybe we can do some kind of a study to see if the speed needs to be reduced on the street, because this is going to be open game.
Part of what these guys will do will be to look at the speeds.
Okay.
Our pretty much standard would be to stick with the speed that's existing. If they're driving 55, I don't know that there's a way that I can get that other than have the patrol step up.
Well, I know, but it's also now it's in our backyard now too, where it was 30 feet away from my fence, now it's in my backyard now too. So that just changes things as well, yeah.
So
the bridge you just had up at Edgewater, is that widening the existing bridge?
What's that?
The bridge there at Edgewater, is that part of your project?
No, that is KDOT's. This is the part you see in green, that's highlighted in green there and purple is all KDOT. That is their part of their design, part of their project. We are just coordinating the two projects and matching into each other.
Your project fully funded?
Current, we estimate it to be yes. Prices have been doing a little bit funny. What's that? No, this is funded through the city of Wichita, not through property owners.
Hey, James, can I talk just very briefly about the speed study?
Yeah.
I will tell you that there is no speed study that's ever been done that will ever happen that will have that road slower than 40 miles an hour. I'm just telling you,
Really?
it is not gonna get slower. It's, when you do a speed study, it talks about 85th percentile speed is what it's supposed to do. So if you were to stick it out there and if you were to go do a study, it might actually suggest it should be faster rather than slower.
So how do we get a speed bump?
No.
I'm just telling you, plan on a 40 mile an hour roadway out there. There's not gonna be a study to make it slower. I don't wanna fool you on that. I don't wanna.
We do look at speeds for a project, but as Ken said here, we are not.
No, I know
probably
it's the
going to
beginning,
change
that's fine.
Yeah, if we did a study, it would say to go faster, not slower, so that's not the result you
We
want.
got a left time on our.
No, I was just gonna say, sometimes even the design of having the path, having, if there's more greenery, trees, whatever, will cause some traffic calming.
Yeah, and we talk about doing medians, and because medians can kind of separate and create narrower situations that feel slower, but they become. There's not a lot of room on the project where you have so many intersections, and then also it's a maintenance issue for the public works to be able to do those. So we look at that in some instances where it's more of a boulevard, but we generally, we're kind of limited on what we can do by the space available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
If you look at the entrances out here, there's just not, you have to have so much space in order to start adding medians, and there just isn't that with all the drive-ins out there.
Okay, no, I do like the turn lane, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, no,
I'm not coming after you.
the turn lane has so much safety for those rear end
I
traffic.
like that for my kids, so I'm
We typically
on your
don't
side on that
design
one.
for even lane roads any longer because of that. So our traffic handling, our detour, we are planning to have one lane southbound on this project. There's methods behind our madness. Typically, we would want to have a lane going northbound on this project, but due to the limited amount of north-south traffic ways through this area, it becomes extremely difficult to actually get people signed to take a detour if you go the other direction. You have to start getting people off at Greenwich and sorry. I apologize. You have to start getting people off at Greenwich in order to make, if you had northbound, you'd have to have people start to get off at Greenwich, and there's really not a way to start signing that.
Yeah,
And it just gets pretty convoluted as far as like how to manage a detour that would go for southbound.
Let me throw one other thing on that. The other thing that came into play on that too is phase one of KDOT's project where they're doing that bridge at Edgewater or whatever it was there. They're wanting to do southbound there, so we're matching their phasing on that as well. So there was two different things. One is just dealing with, as James said, the extreme distances you're trying to notify ahead. Whereas somebody even thinking about 143rd when they're in Andover, probably not. But also we're trying to match up with the KDOT phasing, so.
So the entire duration of the project would
No.
be southbound?
So we have two different phases on this for the most part. Our plan is to build half of the road at a time, of course. And by the time you get the first half built, that should give you 2 lanes to shift traffic over to. And so the second phase of the project, once we get 2 lanes built, should be able to carry 2 lanes, one north and one southbound.
What's the
So-
projected timeline for your project?
So roughly 12 months worth of construction. That's pretty standard for a project like this. We do have a 4-phase intersection that we're gonna have to deal with at Harry Street, so that does possibly create a little bit of a time lag. A conservative estimate might be 14 months.
Per phase, are you saying phase 1 is 6 months?
More than likely, our first phase is gonna have storm sewer, so it's probably gonna be the longer of the 2 phases. So it can lag a little bit, so maybe it's like a 60 or 60, 55, 45 split or 60-40 of time, where phase 1 takes a little bit longer. But then again, you also have the the Harry Street intersection that's gonna have to be built in quadrants and quarters. And that adds a little bit of time to some of these phasings, so.
Let me add one other thing on the thing about time. The one thing else to bear in mind is your perception of how long it takes will be longer than that because there will be utility relocations start as well. So there will be a few months of utility relocations where there may be single lane shakedowns temporarily while they're doing some work. But that'll be coordinated by the utility companies at that. So when he's talking about the timeline, that's for the project, but there will be that perception of it being longer because of utility relocations.
Not factoring the weather.
What's that?
Not factoring the weather.
Factoring weather, our construction time should be around 12 to 14 months. That's
And the
generally,
residents right on 143rd will be day by day how they get in.
what's that?
The residents right along 143rd, is that stormwater sewer and utility relocation, it'll just be whatever's going on that day, their house will gone.
They'll
have notice.
They'll need to be coordinating with property owners on how the construction is going on. The intent is to keep everybody's drives open, everybody's streets open so that you have access. We know there's places that are locked into 143rd that your only access. So that is going to be accounted for. We're not gonna shut people out of their homes for months on end or anything. There may be a short period where if we're having to dig through somebody's driveway, that it may have to be shut down, but that's typically coordinated with each individual property. If people have dual drives, typically one would be shut down. If people have single drives in order to rebuild it, typically one that would be built half the time so that you still have access.
And to James's point, even on the main roads, if there's a subdivision that has two different entrances, we'll try to keep one of them open while the other one's closed, just to keep traffic where they can safely get through.
So again, to be specific, our detour, we plan our detour to be marked to Andover Road because of this 159th Street here is kind of a little bit. It's not the greatest pavement, it's not the greatest road. And so
It'll still be open though, right?
we're not closing 159th, no. But it does have the opportunity to at the low water crossing right there to flush.
live there,
So
we know.
yeah, everybody's pretty familiar with that, I'm assuming.
And the savvy homeowner in the area, all the other side roads, you'll still be able to detour using those. We just won't officially sign those.
Yeah. So these what are planning to be our officially signed detours. Now, part of what we're planning on doing is doing westbound through Harry Street. We are going to have to do only a single lane. That does create what looks like a pretty hairy bypass here. But there are other ways around this, we're only gonna be able to carry one direction through Harry Street. But, if you're looking to get back here, you can take this route. Or if you're looking to get over here, there's a possibility, this is not, again, not a great road. Not all paved. And so, we're going to be marking to Andover Road.
Yeah, and again, 159th will be open, but it's kind of the city's policy to not detour traffic onto an unpaved road. So 159th will be a much shorter drive for anybody who knows to take it, but we can't detour people onto a gravel road though.
So project funding, project is included in our 2024-2033 adopted capital improvement program or the CIP. That includes 970 for design in 2024 and 6.95 million in 2025. This is all local sales tax, and our total budget is 8.305 million. Our recommendation today is that you consider and approve this design concept for that. And our next steps for this would be to present this at City Council on January 9th. That fee starts at 9. And anticipated construction is to start in 2025 and coordinated with the East Kellogg construction. I will take any additional questions or comments now.
They've been put out to bid yet?
Sorry, sorry.
Is it put out to bid yet? Contract?
We're not even in design yet. So we've got until 2025 until we're funded.
We talked about in the Timber Lakes area, there, a lot of the Timber Lakes homeowners property, you have that proposed fence going along the whole back property.
I can barely hear you. I'm sorry, I don't hear very
The
good.
Timber Lakes Homeowners Association, going along the back, you have a proposed walkway along the back.
The east
Can you-
side is 6 foot.
That's not even that, I'm like, they're going in the property line on the back and saying they're gonna put a fence along the back of the houses all the way.
We're staying within the right, I'm not quite sure, I mean, we're staying within the right of way along the,
Can you pull up the picture?
can you bring that up back up, sorry?
It's what I mentioned earlier, but I wasn't real sure. Thank you.
Well. It's gonna take a second. Oop.
Okay, if you go back, that would work. The proposed sidewalk going along with the Timber Lakes property there.
Right here.
Right. It went, oh, okay, I see. You're not proposing along the back.
No.
Okay, great. It's just.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't tracking. This is the only sidewalk we're proposing right there. This is.
I was looking at the.
Yeah, no, that's,
Gotcha.
this is where we're drawing the line. We're not going any further than what we have to, guys. We're not.
So that thin white line that you see there, those are actually the property lines. I made those white so you can see them on the screen because black doesn't show up very well.
What's the dotted lines inside the property lines?
Those are easements.
I do have
They're
a
not-
quick
they
question
can't-
because I do live just right above him and that sidewalk does go on our fence.
It does. It will go into mine.
And
too.
so my question is, will you do, I know it's just an aerial view and I understand that, but will you do,
Stone.
or what will happen if it's on our fence or like right up against our fence?
space.
So our intent currently is to build the sidewalk at the right of way. That's typically what we shoot for. That is not written in stone, but that is our intent. We will look at the project as a whole and when you say it's likely that we would try to put the sidewalk at the edge of your fence, yes, if that's what the case is. The reason we do that is what that does is it provides a clear marking of where people can go in and do something on their property in the future. Otherwise, we get a lot of people that like to start moving stuff out onto the right of way. And by putting the sidewalk at the right of way line, it gives them a clear area that says, you know, that's where you have to draw the line. We don't always follow that. There's some trees out here that we know are in the area. We might
There's
try.
some beautiful trees. I'm also worried about those.
I don't know exactly where we're at on those yet. That's a little bit premature, but we are consciously trying to salvage trees when we can.
Okay.
I can't guarantee you what we're doing exactly on this project.
Would you let us?
Hey, Jim.
We're gonna be bringing this back for that later on.
Okay, perfect.
I see Bruce from the district.
Yes, go ahead.
Bruce.
Thank you. I just want to be careful that we don't blow by this drainage issue. Clarify, please, for me where the impassable road was, please.
Twin Lake. East
When it was flooded.
43rd.
I'm not it's probably tough to.
At what road? Is it at the bridge?
Well, so there's I guess there's quite a few. If we're talking about the one I pointed out.
No, it's not. It's in the middle part of the.
It's the road that crosses.
Yeah, no, I got it
right there.
That's
Yeah,
what it
that's
is.
maybe- I'm Second, guys. I'll
There's
get
too
to-
much talking for me to know what's going on.
So the one I pointed out to you was this low water crossing that's kind of right next to the county line road. That's on 159th. There are roads that cross in through here.
Right there.
And I'm a little bit blind. I can't see them all. There's 4 or 5 different roads in through
Right
here
there.
that I believe all get impassable during some high waters, if I'm not correct. Anybody? Is that
So
correct?
none of that is on 143rd Street.
No.
It's the drainage path.
It's this drainage that goes through here.
Correct.
Right. All right, I just wanted to be sure that we weren't blowing by that and if we need to do something different with that bridge or not. That's all.
The bridge that we're looking at doing work on is the one down here about a quarter of a mile north of Harry Street. It's on the spring.
But I'm at a disadvantage because I can't see your pointer from
I
the
understand,
computer.
that's why I was trying to, it's basically where Harry Street is, where that green horizontal line is. about, a fourth of the way up to Kellogg.
Oh, way down there.
Yeah. And so.
Okay, thank you.
That runs along the east side of 143rd. A lot of those roads that are impassable during storms.
Okay, thank you.
Could you back up to about slide 6? I'm looking at the road layout. There. No.
Yes.
This will be posted online on the city's engineering website for projects in design.
This slide, or did you need one? Is that the one?
Yes, sir.
Question, is there a north-south elevation break point along there, or are we pretty flat?
For drainage,
Now, there is a break where the drainage predominantly goes to the south. And I'm gonna say it's somewhere in the area of, if I remember right, it's actually at Spring Valley is where the break occurs. Everything south of Spring Valley goes south, everything north of there makes its way north, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. But we'll be maintaining the existing drainage patterns. We aren't redirecting any water on the project at all.
How much lower is 143rd going?
It'll vary along the course of it. There'll be spots where it could be upwards of 3 feet lower. There'll be spots where it's maybe 1 foot lower. But in general, it'll be pulled down a little bit below. Because one of the city gets awful cranky if we leave water sitting on y'all's property. They don't like us to do that, so we want to make sure we're low enough to drain the water into the project. So it'll be generally cut somewhere
You're
between
taking
1 foot.
143rd down about.
It'll be cut pretty significantly, yeah.
So does that mean the houses that back up, that grade into the ditch, that'll be covered?
Our goal is to have everything low enough. We've identified one spot so far where we may need to have an area drain in a backyard just because the negative impacts on the nearby intersections, if we try and keep pulling the road down, it starts impacting the intersections. So we may have 1 or 2 area drains along the way, but in general, we try to avoid those, but we'll be looking for those kind of things.
essentially what your existing right of way should drain, not into a ditch, but out into the street. And we'll be grading it according. That makes sense.
Drain into the gutters.
Yeah, it'll be draining instead of into a ditch, into the street, into the curb and gutter, yes.
Yeah, and one thing else I'll mention on drainage here real quick. If you guys look at the grading, and a lot of y'all live out here or live close to the road here, in general, everything east of 143rd already drains to the east. Everything in 143rd will pick up everything west that drains into it. We're not redirecting drainage into the areas east. Everything will be pulled into our project. We aren't going to be dumping the street into the side streets. So just so you know, that's one thing we do look at in our design, is making sure that we're low enough that we don't dump new water into folks' neighborhoods.
Yes, ma'am.
I live on the corner of Lincoln and 143rd.
Yes, ma'am.
So if it's 2 lane, we're gonna go to 5 lane with clear ditches and sidewalks on and stuff. Is there some requirement here in Wichita, if I were building a new house, that the house must be recessed back far enough from the roadway, a distance? Is there that same type of requirement here in Wichita? And if so, what is it?
You're referring to a setback, and there are setbacks depending on how your property was platted. So I'm not sure in particular.
So that's one of the reasons when we talked about moving the street to the west a little bit, is we didn't want to create a situation where we were buying right away on the east side of the road and starting to reduce that front setback. So our whole goal is to leave that east right of way alone so we don't reduce any setbacks from property lines.
So which one did you say? Which corner were you on?
Lincoln.
I'm on the corner of Lincoln and 143rd.
Yeah, which one? The one to the north or the one to the
Right,
south?
well, right there, that's it.
Okay.
So, our house right now seems fairly close to, the yard seems fairly close to the road. So are you saying that it's not gonna take any of that? Or if so, how much of it is gonna take? And, is there some requirement that our house be back off of it, however many feet?
Your house, we would not change anything that you need to do with your house. Anything that we would do would be, would not change anything that requires you to do any setbacks on your property. I do know that we were looking at in order to make this this little shift in the road work, we were looking at having to, and keep the sidewalk in here. We were looking at having to take a little sliver out of the kind of the southeast corner of your lot. I believe that's at what, 5 foot wide?
Yeah, I think the maximum.
At the
width is
max,
5
at the
foot.
corner, it's 5 foot wide, and then it tapers down, so it's a little sliver of the actual private property, and then from there, then the sidewalk would be at the right of way line.
So, and I'll say, when we get further into design where we've gotten far enough to do track maps, the city will be reaching out to you. The city has a property management department that'll be reaching out to you to discuss that when the time is right. And they'll talk about the impacts on your property at that time, but they talk to the individuals. They don't go to groups of people. They'll go to you individually to discuss those.
We should not be affecting any of your setbacks or anything.
And it
like
won't.
that.
Okay, I appreciate that we would not have to give you the house back.
Yeah, no, you're-
Cool, thank you.
Yes.
But if we've got a road that's now closer to our wintertime snow, how many cars are gonna be coming into our front yard? Oh, sliding,
Yeah, road
we have,
doors now.
we have
Because
cars
now
in
the
the
road
town
is a
now.
lot closer to our front door, or our back door, or our pool. Now it's too, I mean, it's way closer to our outbuildings and our pool.
I don't know.
have this exact same question. You're moving.
I know.
You're going to
I'm
achieve.
gonna say, here's the
What-
deal there on that.
what
We
do
hear
you-
that on every single project. Everybody's worried about it.
Mhm.
It's never a problem when the project's done. It never is. I know that you're concerned about it, but there's hundreds of miles of roads in the city.
I get
And
it.
cars don't go sliding into houses at random all over the city any more than they do on stuff like this. It doesn't happen.
I'm more
where-
concerned with the noise.
Well,
Just that
that's
it's
a
lot
different
closer.
conversation.
Yeah.
Cars aren't gonna go sliding.
Go ahead and ask your question, man.
Well, that was I have two questions, actually. One is the noise.
On Keller Drive.
We're next door to her,
We're right up the
across the
street
street
from
from
you.
her, where you're going in on her property, and
I'm
I'm
not with her.
curious.
Oh, I'm
if-
sorry.
Yeah, that's right there.
Okay,
And we had talked earlier here, and you said you weren't sure if you were even going to
Space is
your
killing.
property or not.
I don't believe we are.
I
That,
don't believe.
no, I don't believe,
That's my-
our intent would be to not go into your
Well,
yard.
I understand it's your intent.
Well, I mean, right now we have what we call a concept, right? We don't have full survey on the properties out here. We don't, I mean, in order to get into those details, we have to get our survey done, then we have to go into full design. We have to look at our grading plans, all those types of things have to go into.
I'm I'm just curious because I've never had this happen in one of my houses. Isn't that something you would do ahead of time so we would know?
Yeah, so, yeah, I'll take care of it.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, I'm curious.
I have some grading a little bit though.
So we do look at some of the grading. Our goal with the project is, what he's done is taking a high level look at all the grading and existing right of way. His plan so far has looked at that and has got the road in general where it should be, and try to reduce any grading onto private property and staying away from people's privacy fences. All of the monuments on the project, walls, those types of things. They've taken that into account as much as they can at this point. So it's been looked at, but there are still things that we still have to do yet to know everything on the project, but our intent is to leave everybody's fencing and walls, those types of things alone on the project. Can't tell you any closer than that where we're gonna be at the end. Once we get into track maps, like you said, then we come out, if we have to do something, we have an individual conversation with you through our property management group. If we have to do something beyond the right of way.
Did you wanna add?
And he actually covered it really well. At the end of the day, we've looked at some preliminary grading. We've went through and we've looked. Like I said, we've seen at least one spot where we know we're gonna do that. However, once you get into refined design, the reason why he's not willing to say there's absolutely no chances, because you never say never. So we have no intent, and it's highly unlikely that your property is gonna be affected. But you never say never, because something can always happen as you're going through the design process. And so he covered that pretty well. We're not planning on it, but you never say never.
Oh, I understand. I guess the whole, you don't plan on it helps you, but it doesn't help us.
So right now, our plan right now shows us.
Well, you're gonna increase our traffic, you're gonna increase noise.
Yeah.
In which case,
The
our
traffic
property,
is
our
going,
property values are gonna.
the traffic is going to increase off of Kellogg for you guys. And you're gonna end up with a lot of dangerous wrecks if we don't do an improvement.
How many I've only been here a couple, so I.
So,
How many accidents have there been on
I don't know that off the top of my head. Did you?
It's in our drain, or it's in our traffic report, but I don't have those memorized off the top of my
I'm
head.
sorry, hold on one second, I wanna complete here, but essentially, you know. Part of our design here is to account for what we have estimated is going to be necessary for this road to handle traffic that's going to be coming through this area once Kellogg gets built 15 years down the way. If we don't do the 5-lane roadway right now, it's likely going to start clogging up. And you're gonna see a lot more people getting rear-ended, slowing down, short stops, those types of things in this area, because it will handle once we get to our projected traffic counts that we see that we have for 2040. We're not coming back in 2040 to do anything out here. We get one shot to get it right. We're being a little bit conservative, but we think this is going to be best for the area to go with this design now. It won't happen again probably in my career with the city that this gets improved again. That's kind of where we're at. Yes.
Yes, so, I wanted to kind of go back to, I've heard impermeability mentioned a few times, and people seem to be very concerned about drainage. I was wondering, did we go to the sustainability board and find out if there were any other options? So all of these property owners will be also responsible for the sidewalks once they start deteriorating. So have we thought about any other more sustainable options for the sidewalks, knowing that it may cost a little more, but it may last longer, may help with some of the issues that they're talking about? Would you be interested in bringing this up to the sustainability board, finding out what other eco-friendly options there might be?
We have not taken it to the sustainability board.
I know it's in the design phase.
I wasn't
that's why I'm
I wasn't planning on taking it there, but I'm not quite sure that we have a lot of other options for sidewalks. There's, I'm not quite sure what you're shooting for, but.
Like the mats at the park, but I know that there's sidewalk versions of those that allow the rain to come through, but are still hard enough.
We've done some testing of some like permeable pavement. It's terrible. It takes it doesn't hold up. It actually deteriorates faster. And it requires a cleaning in order to stay permeable, which has to happen every so often. And currently there is nobody that can do it.
And it's a little bit different in the park.
Yeah.
Well, I was just giving, so people knew what I was talking about, but there are places all over the world that use sidewalks that allow that are permeable and also have a lot of longevity, and I was just.
They also require a huge prep. You're supposed to prep down, I think, 8 or 10 feet below those with sand bedding and that type of thing. And then you also have to have a plan to go in there and clean them. And we don't have any equipment to do it. And I'm not sure that anybody in the general vicinity has.
That would be the city responsible for cleaning sidewalk, but it's sidewalk rates, it's citizens that are responsible for fixing the
The
sidewalk.
permeable does not last nearly as well as
I'm just
far
curious.
as like longevity of standing sidewalks.
Okay, we have one more question.
What's this gonna do to our, property value, since we're facing 143rd? And you're putting 5 lanes of traffic in front of our house, what's that gonna do to our property value?
Are you looking for them to go up or down?
Well, this year they went up $800, so that was painful. But what's it gonna do, like, if we were to sell? Who's gonna wanna buy a house facing 5 lanes of traffic?
Typically, when you get better access, you have a little bit more sellability. I cannot answer that in any clear that I do not know for sure. I'm not a property person that can give you any better answer than that. I apologize.
What are you leaving?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a few more questions and then we'll wrap up.
So how extensive a soils report will this project require? I know on Kellogg, they've been doing all kinds of borings, testing that is due to the weight of the highway, or you guys project
Bridge, typically related to bridge work. That's why they're doing all the geotech there.
Kellogg has a ton of different criteria that they have to meet compared to what that they need to do compared to what we have to do. They're carrying larger volumes, larger traffic, bigger machines, bigger operations, and bridges, lots of bridges, so signs, yeah, they,
Soils.
we do, when we need to, we'll have some reports and.
But we'll do, so the city has a standard design section of how the road is gonna be. So we don't need to do a soils report to determine that.
Yeah.
They have a standard practice. We will probably get a few borings along there to make sure that we don't have any underlying issues, but in general, the city has a very prescriptive process on how the road's done, so where the geotech is not as critical as it might be on a highway.
Yeah, and we probably have what I would consider a conservative design based on that, so that we cover a lot of instances that you see throughout the city, which talk with soils.
All right, wait, 3 questions in the back, and then we'll wrap up.
Yes. We'll start in the middle. You lowered your hand first.
Can you not consider cutting back on the width of the sidewalk, 10-foot path or 6-foot
So
sidewalk?
that's our standard design is 6-foot sidewalks, and then when we can, we elect to, if we're not doing something on street with bike lanes, then we would elect to try to do a 10-foot multi-use path. Those are standard widths. That's.
And
in
it's
our
about
design.
safety for a bike to be able to safely pass a pedestrian. If you go on a 6-foot path, a bike passing a pedestrian, somebody's gas has to leave the pace, has to leave the surface. It's not safe at that width, so 10-foot is what has been long.
Only in special circumstances do we try to look and change that when we absolutely
Well, it-
necessary.
I would consider this special circumstance
It's
for the buffer of these houses that are.
the thing is that this is the same that we see on every project, not that doesn't affect you any less, but this would not be considered a special circumstance. No, I'm sorry. This would be our standard that would apply here. Yes, sir.
Can you comment on streetlights? Are you adding them, and which side of the street you think to be on?
We typically would come through and light this afterwards. We still, that's a little premature to tell you exactly where they're gonna be right now. Candy, you know?
No, we don't have a specific.
But we.
Would they be on the bike path or the side?
We would work with Evergy to do that as part of they'll come back in and do that. We pay a tariff for each one of those poles. We're not even designing it with the project per se. It's something our consultant would work with Evergy to be able to design that. Typically on a road like this, you're only gonna light from one side. So it'd be based upon where there are poles. And I know some of this area you get into Butler Rural Electric, so we have to look and see that. I think this portion of it's Evergy.
I think so.
Are there gonna be any major towers?
What's that?
Any of these major towers that have been going up?
That's transmission.
In our area?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Transmission.
This is standard distribution wood,
Yes.
unless it's street lights might be. I'm certain.
There's not gonna be any changes in the utility poles on the project. If anything, there would be a small reduction, but there's been nobody coming to us saying, hey, we wanna put a new pole line in, so.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, we have one more question. It's hard for us to hear up here if other people are talking. Pardon me, I'm so sorry. It's just really hard for us to hear the folks in the back. Yes, ma'am.
3 parts, but I'm gonna make it quick. Number 1, and I'll just say them all and then you can answer them however you want to. Number 1, who's responsible for maintaining the sidewalks in front of the homes? Is that on the homeowner? Number 2, do I assume then if it's really not gonna impact the setback requirement of our house, am I interpreting this right? That you're thinking that 3 new lanes are gonna fit on the west side of the road? That's number 2. And number 3, with all of this stuff that's going on, how concerned should we be as homeowners that all this ground movement is gonna affect our foundations? Cracking.
So in my time as 20 years with the city, I'll answer the last one first. I've never seen what we're doing with standard road construction like this affect anybody's foundation. Ever. Don't expect that to change. I've never even, the biggest thing I've ever seen was when we were drive and pile with a big old hammer that drops a huge weight down onto something, people could feel that from a certain distance away. And it still didn't, we brought a seismograph out and put it closer to the thing, and it did not register what needed to be what considered affecting any foundations. So that's the one instance that we actually brought something on site to show that we shouldn't be affecting anybody's property. And that's just, that was a huge pile driving machine that was operating then. We're not gonna have that anywhere here except for possibly at the bridge location.
Yeah, the bridge might have to have some piles put in.
But the rest of the project should not have anything that should do any of that. Second, I think I'll go back to your first question about.
Responsibility for maintaining
So we build the sidewalk, and then it is the owner's responsibility to own and maintain that after we get done building.
Snow removal on cracks and things like that.
Yeah. The biggest difference is that we have kind of a prorated amount for these bike paths. So,
I mean, if you're on the bikes path side, you don't pay the whole 10 foot. The city will pick up some of that just to where it match if you were on the 6 foot side of the 10 foot side.
yeah. So, and then the last question was about your property. We are widening the roadway on both sides of the road.
Are you on the east?
Your right of way line is not going to change except for that little sliver. And the setback is measured from that right of way line. So, but the roadway is going to cover a lot of the ditch that's there now. And then the sidewalk will be kind of where the top of the ditch is. I'm assuming it's pretty close to that, where the top of the ditch is now. So we are going to have pavement that will be in the right of way, but expanded from what is there now, because it's adding approximately 33 foot wide of pavement out there. It's what's there now. You got, 24 foot now, and we're gonna be at close to, what is that, 60? I don't know what the total is.
60 and a half, or 61 feet total.
61 foot, yeah. So it does increase quite a bit of pavement by the time you're done with this project. But it's not just on the west side of the property. It will be widened on both sides. The approximate center line of the road is going to be approximately the center line of the road in the future, so.
I'm just gonna make a few comments if I can. James, thank you. Great. And Sean, thank you for being here and for answering questions. Also to our friend Ted Garber, we appreciate you being here. Are there any questions from the board?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just have a question on timing. So this is the first time I'm seeing this concept design. Just wanted to find out how long has it been open for review of the public? Is this the first time that you've been able to receive public feedback? Like, what has the communication rollout looked like?
This is when we first take it to the public. We go through a initial design where we start looking at some of these issues, such as drainage, such as right of way. Overall, get a traffic study done, which we've done. And that's how we decided to go with 5 lane versus 3 lane. Those types of things have been done. We got a report on those. We typically don't post the report. It's long. It's a little bit wordy for people to, I don't think anybody wants to read 77 pages of the report most days, but I have all that stuff. We will post the concept here and this concept here.
What's the website?
If I can get it. Basically the 2 boards that we have over here, and I can't forward this, I'm sorry. But the intersection detail and this. It's not working. Yeah, so this will be posted online. And this will be posted online on the City of Wichita's engineering website for upcoming projects that are in the design phase. It'll have these concepts posted. This is our first public showing of all these things.
And I will say, on the 9th, we will just be approving the design phase. So if during the next months, people have questions, concerns, comments, you can reach out at any time.
I do have cards
Yes, this is just moving
For
the
those that
process.
have
forward.
concerns on their properties or something. I have cards that are stacked over here. I gave out a few of them. I'll leave that stack over here for anybody that wants to pick one up.
And I really, oh, Bruce, thank you. Bruce?
Yeah. Forgive me for asking this, but is there still gonna be a stoplight on Kellogg at this intersection?
So it's going to get improved to, let me see if I can bring that up here. Kind of what's, sorry. Yeah, pretty much the same thing that you see out here with the Texas U-turns. If you can't really see it, but the yellow portion there in the top is the overpass. And then the purple part is the frontage roads where you have the north-south lanes. And then you have the green spots that'll be medians. And then you have your Texas turnarounds that are kind of those loops where you can turn a free left to get back going the other direction. And so.
So it'll be like Greenwich.
Yeah, it's very similar to Greenwich. There's a lot of intersections. West Street just got built like this. A lot of intersections are like this. Tyler, Mays, Greenwich.
So there will be lights, but they'll be north-south traffic, not the Kellogg traffic.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all.
You bet. All right.
Oh my gosh. I think Steph did a great job.
I just, and
I would make a motion to approve it.
And then, I would like to thank you all for coming. Tim and I were commenting. I was on the district advisory board for 5 years, or I've been a council for 5 years. And you all have asked the best questions of any meeting that I have been to at a district advisory board. So thank you. And I appreciate the fact that you care, that you came. Sorry, it's taken so much of your evening, but please know the questions don't stop tonight. You can reach out at any time and we'll continue. We come to homeowners association meetings, any way that we can answer any questions that we have. But truly, I mean this, thank you for coming and asking such thoughtful questions and also for being so polite and respectful. It really means a lot to me, I know, to staff, to our advisory board members. Yes, ma'am.
And I just want to make sure that the follow-up meeting is going to be the 9th at 9 AM.
That's the city council.
That's the city council.
So it's not really a follow-up.
Okay, but
Yeah,
that's, if you
that's-
want to come to your board, that's the next meeting about this.
You will hear more, you'll hear this exact
Okay,
presentation.
but if we
from
want to be
staff.
there, that's.
You can certainly be there.
Okay.
I recommend you get there a few minutes early, and if you park in the parking area, please bring your parking ticket and we'll validate it for you, so you don't have to pay for parking. So anybody who comes to speak on an item, you'll have 5 minutes to be able to.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Will there be another meeting where we are in contact with everybody on when this is happening, what's going on and all of this, like another meeting like this?
Eric's shaking his head, I agree. Usually
Yeah,
when
we'll be
there's a
in
project
contact
as significant
as well
as
as the
this, we
project.
try and make sure.
If some of the HOA, the homeowners associations, are interested, we'd be happy to meet on a much smaller scale and talk specifically about the issues and the questions that you might have.
So I will say this, don't start reaching out to everybody willy-nilly. Please just reach out to me. Everything should come through me. As far as like coordinating, if you want a meeting with somebody, except for the council, you can reach out to the council member anytime you'd like. But as far as like project specific related, if you come to me, we're in charge of making this design happen. You're not gonna get a runaround, I guess is the, if you come to me, you're not gonna get a runaround from someone.
So take James's part.
Yes,
Blow his phone up.
do not do that.
And his email. I know he would love that.
Yeah, and then,
Okay, I don't.
one other final
yeah.
comment, as far as what happens, one thing that will happen is before we go to construction, there will be other
Yes.
public meetings at that time to go through the final design, to have the contractor involved to let you know phasing and those kind of things. So there'll be opportunities at that point, once we have that information, but that's a long ways down the road.
I know probably there's people that have a lot of questions on Kellogg. I would suggest getting online to KDOT's website and following what they're doing with their Kellogg design as well. If you have property along here, I'm sure they will be reaching out to you. Someone's already reached out to me and I will try to get them direct to the right people. I think that's in the process of happening. We do have contacts with KDOT. We can help you along with that, but yes, so.
All right. Faith, I think you were going to.
Yes, I was gonna move to, recommend, or take the action to recommend this going to city council. So putting it on that.
So all the motion is tonight is just that it now can go to city, right, more discussion.
Second.
Okay, John, second. Is there any discussion from the district advisory board members? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of having this recommended to go to city council on January 9th, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? So the item passes unanimously, so now it'll move forward to city council. Well, thank you all again for being here. You're welcome to stay. We have many more robust items. If I can make one quick comment, the doors at the front close at 8, right?
Yes,
Lisa?
I got one
So,
right here.
if you would listen just for 1 second, I promise for your safety. So you're gonna have to use this exit when you go out. Unfortunately, it's not lit well, and you have to take about a 3-inch step down. So when you go out this door, it's not well lit, and please make sure you step it down.
I understand what you're saying. That is. What happens on that first?
Okay, we're gonna move forward. with the rest of the meeting.
Somebody that someone. Oh, yeah, or you can.
Yes, thanks.
So we have a policy. And that's kind of. But that's the reason. For the most part, almost the entire.
I'm so sorry. Meeting. Thank you. Make sure you step down when you go outside. All right, moving right along. Troy.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, Troy, thank you for being with us.
My stuff is not going to be nearly as fascinating as that, so I will try to breeze through my stuff really fast.
So ladies, all of us step outside.
Got a lot of concerns.
Let's take this outside.
Thank you.
This you?
That's.
Sorry, right. All right, so next is new business item now it's 9. And Troy Anderson, who is our assistant city manager, is going to talk to us about retaliatory eviction ordinance. We've had this workshop before city council, we've been talking about this for a bit. So if you would like to present the information to us, Troy, we would love to hear it.
Well, first of all, again, thanks for having me. I'm going to try to run through this really fast, but if you all have any questions as I go through this, don't hesitate to interrupt me. So just a little background, just to set the stage. We have historically received reports of retaliatory evictions by landlords, and as a result, as we have investigated some of these complaints, we have been made aware of housing code violations, and so as part of that process, it's become increasingly difficult to differentiate between an eviction that is the result of a housing code complaint versus perhaps a justified eviction. So this has been an ongoing conversation. In fact, since August of 2022, representatives of the city have had conversations with community stakeholders The issues have been brought up at various neighborhood meetings, including DAB meetings. And one consistent recommendation that keeps coming back is a retaliatory eviction ordinance. So we have drafted a retaliatory eviction ordinance that has been modeled after an ordinance that Topeka adopted earlier this year. But understand that state law prohibits retaliatory evictions. More specifically, under KSA 582572, landlords may not retaliate by increasing rent or diminishing services after a tenant complains of habitability or housing code violations. Also, landlords may still bring an eviction action or raise rent if it's not based on retaliation, if it's based on a lease agreement or other terms and conditions. And then there's no other protections for tenants or penalties for landlords under state law. So about a year ago, Topeka introduced a retaliatory eviction ordinance, and so we have modeled this draft ordinance after Topeka. Okay, so the ordinance that, as it's been drafted, institutes fines for conviction based on retaliatory evidence, similar definitions as laid out in state law, and clearly defines what actions are not retaliatory by a landlord. The best way I can describe it is we have created an administrative process, right? So the state law that prohibits retaliatory evictions lays out a process by which if a tenant is evicted and they feel it's in retaliation to a housing complaint, the only recourse they have under state law is the judicial process, right? And violation under state law can be standing for filing a civil case, right? So this adds an additional layer of local, what we call administrative oversight or an administrative process. So basically what happens is if a tenant feels as though they have been evicted out of retaliation, they file a claim with the city. Claims must be submitted within 180 days. And then the first step that we go through is we try to oversee mediation between the landlord and tenant, right? If both parties do not want to participate in mediation, we proceed to the next step. If we can resolve it at mediation, then claim closed. If mediation does not resolve the dispute, then the law department, as a result of an investigation, will determine whether or not there is sufficient evidence or probable cause to bring a case against the landlord for retaliatory eviction. It's an administrative judge. The administrative judge will hear the case and make a determination. That determination, much like any other administrative case, can be appealed to the appropriate court. So penalties associated with a conviction are outlined here on the screen in front of you. I won't go through it. Anybody that's really following this, you'll note that in the ordinance that was originally drafted and put before City Council, there was a discrepancy in these fines. When this comes back before City Council, know that this fine schedule is what will be introduced as part of the ordinance. So if a landlord is found to have evicted a tenant in retaliation to a housing code complaint, first offense could no less than $250, no more than $1,000. Second conviction, no less than $500, no more than $1,500, so on and so forth. So The financial impact to the city, we think, is going to be minimal. We don't anticipate a lot of these cases coming to the city. However, those costs that we do anticipate, we ballpark probably $750 per complaint to take it through mediation, should both parties agree to go through mediation. And so otherwise, we think that impact to the city's budget will be minimal. The ordinance has been drafted by the law department. And while we are recommending city council place the ordinance on first reading tonight, all we're asking from the district advisory board is for your feedback and for your input. Again, we've already presented this to city council. As a result of presenting it to city council wanted us to take the draft ordinance back out to the DABs for feedback. And so with that being said, I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions. Again, not looking for any sort of formal recommendation, but just any sort of feedback and input that we might be able to take back to city council. And otherwise, I'll answer any questions.
Great job. Thank you for presenting the information. Does anybody have questions? Jennifer?
I have a quick question. So would the city ever make a recommendation as to if a landlord had, 4+ unlawful convictions of evictions, would they ever lose the right to be a landlord?
That's a great question. That has not been brought up. We do not have a landlord registry or a landlord license. So it would require, we can't control whether a property owner rents out their property or not. The only way that would sort of work is if somehow the city had a license and the city would then have to revoke a license, but we don't have any of that in place, nor are we proposing that. So unfortunately, no, there is no recourse at this point, other than that progressive fine schedule that you saw in the previous slide for repeat offenders of retaliatory evictions.
Just to understand if there was any other recourse for them to keep
And it's just for retaliatory. So somebody complains because the heater doesn't work, or they have mold, they get evicted, that's retaliatory, right? So any other, you don't like that your landlord doesn't mow the lawn fast enough or fix your toilet, that is, it's, you're actually evicted because you, and just kind of like with the MDO, there's also a discussion period, it's not automatic. Because we had landlords who were concerned that people would be evicted and then say, oh, it was retaliatory when it wasn't, maybe they were paying rent, destroying the place or whatever. So, something new we're trying, so Faith.
So, I was reading through the ordinance and it looks like the mediator and the investigator are both appointed by the city manager. And then, I was wondering why this isn't going to city court versus, I'm trying to write down my thoughts.
We're following the same process, and Troy jumped in anytime, but it's the same with the non-discrimination ordinance, trying to not make it like a legal matter, if you will, and trying for some sort of mediation.
Right, so that's my other question then, because the fines schedule basically is like a month or two of rent. So these people that potentially are getting retaliated against lose a place to live, and the landlord may lose a month or two of rent from one unit. So I feel like the fee schedule doesn't have enough teeth in it. If you're found retaliating against tenants, I think the fee schedule should actually hurt, and then we wouldn't have 4 and then have to come up with what happens if someone has 4. So I think if we're gonna look at the income generated, which is where you're gonna hurt them, like don't do this, then I think it should hurt them a little bit more than a month or 2 of rent.
Fair enough. Okay.
Otherwise, it just doesn't have any teeth and it's a long drawn out process for the person who got retaliated against, or for a landlord, you know, there's 180 days and then 30 days of mediation and written back and forth, and it could be 6 months before someone gets justice, and justice is $1,000 fine.
So for whatever it's worth, this is a parallel process to an actual judicial process that if a tenant feels as though they have been wrongfully evicted, that goes through the court system, right? So in order for a landlord to evict a tenant, they have to get that eviction through the courts, right? This is a parallel process associated, and arguably a landlord or a tenant may use this process in parallel to a formal judicial process. Now that the courts have a much heavier penalty that they can enforce. This is a parallel. This is not a either or. This can be done in conjunction with a tenant who has filed a civil suit against their landlord. This can be run in parallel.
Thank you. I see Chris has a question.
Why does the city need an ordinance if it is already illegal in the state?
You want to do it, Troy, or you got it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, for those tenants who arguably may not necessarily have the means to file a civil appeal, right? Or file a civil suit, this provides a tenant with an opportunity to sort of make their case known at little or no cost, right? Remember, all they have to do is file a claim. They can go through mediation as long as the landlord's willing to go through mediation. Those costs are paid for by the city. And then obviously, if it's found by the administrative judge that the landlord, there is some the fines are just part of it, right? Through mediation and through the process, the landlord, if it's found that there may be sufficient evidence to take it to an administrative judge, the landlord may sort of settle and agree to pay relocation costs, right? Or pay that back rent. So the process provides for an administrative remedy outside of the court system, especially for those that may not necessarily have the means to file a civil suit. And so we tried to strike the balance between, we're trying not to pick sort of winners and losers here, right? We're trying to create a very objective process, right? And so we wanted to make it sort of friendly for tenants, but also friendly for landlords, right? We didn't want to create a process that was overly burdensome for landlords if for whatever reason it's found that the tenant was the one that was responsible for the housing code violation, right? Some of this stuff gets really complicated really, really fast. And so we created an administrative process.
Troy, Chris has a second question. Who pays the legal fees if any of these go to court?
So on the administrative court side, the process that we're establishing as part of this ordinance, all of the investigator, so the time that the investigator will oftentimes be somebody from our law office in conjunction with housing personnel. All of those costs are paid for sort of by the city as part of their normal duties and operations. Same with attorney fees for our city law department to go represent a case at administrative court. So everything that's handled through this process will be paid for sort of by the city. Again, we don't anticipate very many of these cases coming through. If your question is who pays on sort of the judicial side, that's a civil matter between the landlord and tenant. Each party would have to represent their own interests and hire their own legal counsel. On the administrative side, all of the mediation and legal fees. That's where that 750, that's where we came up with that 750, what we think it would cost to go through mediation and go through the investigation and the administrative court costs.
This is Bruce. I can see the razor's edge that you're trying to fit in here. And I appreciate the effort going into this because for two reasons. One, we want as many landlords as possible to open their doors to folks that need a place to live. On the other hand, evicting somebody who has financial troubles is probably sending them to be homeless. And so I can see the landlord issues and I can see the residents issues. Because of that, I would like to see something in here that considers mental illness in the picture. I also would like to recommend that there be a third party advocate involved that hopefully would help everybody be more objective in this process. Perhaps a volunteer person that both the landlord and the resident would agree upon, or maybe just assigned by the city, somebody with some experience in these matters. It is a horrible thing to be facing the street, especially if you have children. It's a horrible thing to be facing the street, especially if you have mental illness. And that these things really need to be accommodated. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Any other questions or comments from District Advisory Board?
I appreciate looking out citizens because the civil side of court can be very prohibitive for people looking for assistance. So I appreciate the administrative component to help people. They don't have to hire a lawyer. I just recommend it.
Thank you, Faith. Does anyone from the community want to weigh in on this or make comments? All right, seeing none, Troy, you think you got what you need?
I did.
So, all right, thanks, Troy. Get some rest. See you in the morning.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
We hopefully we'll be done by morning for council meeting. All right, now and new business item 10, zoning 2023-00064. Christina, you're gonna be with us for a bit more.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christina Reith. I'm an associate planner with the Metropolitan Area Planning Department. This is case number zone 2023-0064. So the applicant, which is Najib and Mona Slayman, and then the agent for the applicant is here to answer any questions that I may not be able to answer. So the applicant is requesting a zone change on this property that you see here from SF5 single family residential district to TF3 two-family residential district. So the parcel that you see outlined in red is 4.11 acres in size and located at 4439 North Webb Road. It's currently developed with a single family dwelling. So the applicant has indicated they intend to use the site for duplex development. Should the zone change request be approved, there'll be no change in setback requirements, parking requirements, or maximum height restrictions. One of the key differences here is that single family residential district requires a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size, while TF3 requires 3,000 square foot minimum lot size per dwelling unit. So if they're doing duplex, it would be 6,000 square feet. So based on the site of the subject size, and this doesn't take into account right of way, sidewalks, landscaping, what have you, the applicant would be able to provide up to 29 duplexes on that site. So the subject site is currently unplatted, and platting will be required prior to the issuance of building permits, and there are no zoning cases associated with this property. When we look at the public services on site here, Municipal services such as sanitary sewer and stormwater services will need to be extended prior to development on site. There's already some water mains on that site. When we look at the conformance to plans and policies that we abide by, the requested zone change is in conformance with the community investments plan. When we talk about the community investment plans, 2035 future growth concept map, it recommends the subject site as appropriate for new employment uses. And there's a quote in here that defines new employment, but I'll just emphasize that in certain areas, especially those in proximity to existing residential uses, higher density housing and convenience retail centers will likely be developed. So we're talking about higher density, duplex development is appropriate for this area. So based upon the information available prior to public hearings, planning staff recommends that the zoning change request be approved. So this recommendation is based on the golden rules that we all abide by for every report. And they're listed here in the report. I will skip ahead to the last one. At the time the staff report was prepared, and as of this afternoon, staff has not received any comments in regards to the requested zone change.
And I would just jump in, I have not received any communication.
Okay, that's fair. And then this did go to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission on November 30th, and it was approved.
Questions from the district advisory board meeting, and then the district advisory board members, and then we'll go to the public. Any questions from, and I can't see if there's anybody online.
I have a question.
Okay, Tim.
It's a planning question rather than a zoning question. The approximate 5 acres to the west of this parcel has a house on it, as it's this parcel. Is that a driveway along the south boundary of this parcel? And will it become a plat, have to be platted as a street? What is the ingress to the parcel to the west? How's that going to be solved?
I don't have that question for you, or that answer for you, unfortunately, but I can ask my colleague Neil, who's the one who deals with subdivision plats, and I can get back to you.
I have no issue.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Would you like to answer this?
Please. If you could just state your name for the record. Thank you.
Bert Miller, TE Morgan Sharing, I'm the agent. We're going to use that road. It's a street right away right now.
It is.
Yeah, it's 60 feet long. That's gonna be our access point, and what we'll do is have 2 cul-de-sacs going to the north of that.
All right. So
we'll pave that road all the way back.
Access directly off of that road.
Right. The big one of that.
I know, I don't want to go any deeper on the planning side. I know this is a land use question, but I did have concern about access to the western parcel.
Yeah. They'll still have.
Thank you. Great answer. Any other questions from district advisory board meeting members? Say that. Anybody online? Seeing none. Anybody from the public want to make comments regarding this agenda item?
I would more than 500 feet away.
It's a public meeting. You can make a comment if you would like. Please
I
go to the podium, sir, and you'll just state your name and your address for the record. But anybody's welcome to make comments. You have 3 minutes. You can ask questions, you can make comments.
My name is David Mulhagen. I live at 4341 North Cypress Drive, which is to the west of this development. I was here to hear something else and was kind of surprised to hear this, but again, we used to be in the county, and so we used to get more notification, and with the 300-foot rule, it's kind of perplexing when we have such large areas that get changed and we don't know about it, but it is still our neighborhood. We're still in this 80 acres that the city annexed illegally, but I won't go into that, it's probably not.
I wasn't here.
Yes, but no, this is all I wanted, and if I could get a copy of, because I tried to find a copy of the SAP report.
Here it is.
And there was
We have a
none.
whole pack.
Okay.
Oh, I
Thank
was gonna
you.
grab it. There you go.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful that this is coming through. I mean, glad for the development. I'm glad to have some more duplexes. And that's basically all I wanted to see about the city is, I know we're not gonna change it. I know the notification parameter has been set, and that's not going to change, but it still is irritating. And that's one reason about 20 years ago, I volunteered to be on that team for 8 years.
Awesome, thank you for your service. And it is state statute. There has been some discussion among council of potentially expanding the area. We've asked staff to look at the additional costs that it would bring in terms of staff time, notification, different things. It's come up before here, even at this district advisory board, so it's not lost to me, so thank you for your comments. Any other comments or questions from the community? Seeing none, we'll bring the discussion back to the district advisory board. Any questions for staff? Any comments?
If I may, I'll move to accept.
Absolutely. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we got Jennifer. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, Christina, we're gonna go to new business item 11, zone 2023-33367 and CUPs 2023 341, 42, and it says 42 twice, I think. Correct?
Yes, so to confirm, zone 2363, does that sound good last? I didn't get a chance to look at the agenda.
Yes. Yes, that, it'll go after this one.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
All right, so I will just preface by saying, I will explain to the best of my ability. I'm sure you guys looked at it, it's like, what in the world is going on?
And before we begin, I'm just gonna say, I have not had any I have had communication with one community member who's also joining us this evening, and we will, be sure to hear from her. And I have had communication with the applicant, because the case can be really, confusing, and complicated, and so I just wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity in advance to learn more, so I've had communication with two different entities.
Okay, nothing for single.
I take that back.
Okay.
The applicant, so good on you, babe, that was awesome. The applicant did have a meeting last Monday evening with the Bonnie Gray neighborhood. I did not join because I have to stay neutral on these topics. And Sam did send me a text today just letting me know that the meeting went well.
You guys are the first governing body to vote on this matter, so it goes to MEPC this Thursday.
And I'll be there.
Yes, okay, wonderful. So, I just wanted to preface, again, by talking about what is a community unit plan.
Thank you.
And a community unit plan is any commercial property that's 6 acres or greater. So, and then with a CUP, you have to put in which uses are either allowed or which uses are restricted. And this is to help protect, you know, the CUP and the surrounding environment. And any changes to a CUP they require a public hearing. So there are 3 requests from the applicant today. The first one is a zone change from limited commercial district to general commercial district. For the area encompassed by the amended boundaries of CUP BP 15. Teresa, could we please pull up the word? There we go. So. It's a long one. This is the longest report I've ever written for the planning staff so far, so. Want to get down to the images. Stop right there for now. Yep. So everything that you see that's outlined in blue with the hash marks, that is what they're proposing to have changed to general commercial district. And also, they are essentially taking land from the properties, the other properties that you see outlined, and combining them into the blue outline area. So it's an amendment to CUP DP 15 to add additional land. And so that when they're taking away land, that is an amendment to that CUP as well. So there are 2 CUP, or there's a total of 3 CUPs. 2 of them are having their land removed to add to the 3rd CUP.
Mm-hmm.
So the subject site for the zone change It consists of, again, 3 CPs and 2 parcels of land that were once, right of way for an interchange for, US Highway 54, 400 and I-35, sorry. The CUP DP 15, which is in blue, is currently undeveloped. CUP DP 116, which is the one it's tough to explain. So it looks like an L currently, but the top half of it that you can see there, that is being added to CUP 15. CUP DP 116 looks like an L right now. So that is developed with 5 hotels, including a Marriott hotel that I'm going to speak about later, a post office, a corporate office, financial institution, as well as a reserve. And the property is presently within CUP DP 48, which is what is outlined in green, is developed with 2 hotels. So a lot of hotels on Kelowna as well. The subject site that we're talking about today, which is outlined in blue, is almost 38 acres in size and is located on the northwest corner of East Kellogg Drive and South Webb Road. So the purpose of this is to create a unified community unit plan over land owned and managed by one ownership. So the zone change is for all the properties that are and will be in CUP DP 115. And those are listed in the report here. So general commercial generally permits more high intensity commercial uses and limited industrial development. But the great thing about a CUP is that it restricts the number of uses that are in that community unit plan. So it essentially puts protections in place. So some of them that they're prohibiting are placement resident, recycling processing center, sexually oriented business in the city, asphalt and concrete plant. So pretty appropriate for this area, right? So, and then any changes from here will require an additional CUP amendment, will require an additional public hearing, right? So if we, Teresa, if we could just go to the zoning map. One more. Oh, a couple more actually. Scroll down. I'll tell you when to stop. Couple more. There we go. So the one that you see in pink on this map, those are already general. So I talked about, in my report, I talked about the CUP amendments. So because they're adding land to CUP DP 115, that will increase in acreage, while 116 and 48 will decrease in acreage. And then the other part of this report is that they're seeking to amend the general provisions of CUP DP 15. So many of the revised provisions, such as lighting standards, parking, the process to make any future changes to the CUP, are consistent with what's already permitted in general commercial zoning. So let's talk about the height that they're proposing for CUP. So the maximum height for parcels 1 and 6 within this community unit plan is 130 feet. And then for parcels 2, 3, 4, and 5, it would be 80 feet. Now, normally in general commercial district zoning, the maximum height is 80 feet, but it's an additional 2 feet for each foot of setback beyond the required minimum setbacks. And, you know, we mentioned this earlier, setback is a minimum distance from the property line to where you can build, right? So the CUP is within zone B of the airport hazard zone for Textron Airport, which is in light purple on the right side there. And so technically the maximum height of all buildings and structures is restricted to 75 feet per the airport hazard zone map. But if we talk about the existing Marriott Hotel, which is currently 116 and moving to 15, that is already 115 feet tall. And so so for future development, to exceed that height restriction of an airport hazard zone, the applicant must obtain a determination of no hazard by the FAA. And the height of the structures cannot pierce any glide slopes of the runway without receiving approval by Wichita City Council. And there is a graphic that was provided by the agent for the applicant that talks about, the glide slope there, and that is, we don't have to go to it right now, but I'm just for your future reference, it is. Page 21 of the report. So, screening and landscaping requirements for this CUP, general provisions here. Yep, there we have it. So the zoning code requires non-residential community unit plans to provide a 6-foot screening wall along property lines that abut residential zoning. The west property line of what will become CPDP 15 abuts a drainage way that is partially zoned XF5 single family. So the amendment to the CUP proposes no requirement for a screening wall on the west lines of the CUP due to the existing landscape screening and the setbacks provided by the existing drainage way to the west. Teresa, could we scroll up to the aerial map? Or scroll down maybe? I just want to show you guys where the creek is. Yeah, I think that'll be fine, yeah. So where the diagonal orange line is, you can see there's a pond, and then just west of that is just the creek. So that's why they're requesting that's why they're requesting no requirement for a screening wall on the west lines of the CUP. And then additionally, the applicant requests that the zoning codes compatibility height and setback standards do not apply to the CUP, again, due to the existing landscape screening and the setbacks provided by the existing drainage ways to the west, and then the highway to the south. The setback along East Colic Drive is shown on the CUP drawing at 35 feet, which meets the zoning code standard. And then the CUP proposes that all other setbacks are than 50 feet of the lot line of property that's TF3 or more restricted. So to the west of CPDP 15 is a property that is partially zoned SF5 single family residential district. However, it's not developable because it is located within a flood zone, and that was confirmed within our GIS maps. So signage by far was the most complicated section for me. I learned a lot about the sign code when I was writing this report. So the proposed general provisions when it comes to signage would permit development identification signs in addition to the permitted number of on-site monument, pole, or pylon type signs. Below, there's a table in your staff report, and it's a review of the proposed sign allowance as they relate to the standards of the sign code. And I'll talk about later that staff does not support permitting sign area that exceeds the minimum area that's permitted by the sign. So the signs that I mentioned earlier would be 150 feet apart, which is here to the standards of the sign code. However, the CUP would permit the proposed development identification signs to be 75 feet from other monument, pole, and or pylon type signs. So this is less than the 150-foot sign separation, but modern CUPs have permitted 75 feet separation between tenant signs and proposed development identification signs. And then the CUP also proposes a maximum height of 50 feet for all 3 proposed development identification signs. And then all other signs would have a maximum height of 31 feet. So one thing that we noticed is, I was driving around when I was taking photos and just examining the area. So there are similar signs in the area that exceed that 50-foot height, and one of them is the Townie small sign, and the other is a Longhorn Steakhouse sign. Those are in excess of 50 feet. So the other thing regarding signage is that the applicant proposes that all signs within all 3 CUPs that are contiguous to each other be considered on-site. And as such, they're allowed to advertise reciprocally between different CUPs. So an example of this is the Marriott Hotel is currently within 160, but it would become part of 15. If we look on Webb Road, there is a sign for the Marriott that is on Webb Road, and it's part of 160.
Yes.
Yes. So staff does not support this proposal for the reasons listed in the staff report here. So one, it's opposed to the standards of the sign code. And it's not legally allowed at this time because all ownerships within the CUP had to have applied for this application. So they can't request that their signs be put on a different CUP unless they sign off on our application, right? So lastly, the applicant proposes 2 off-site signs along Kellogg Drive frontage road, provided they are not spaced less than 330 feet apart from any off-site signs. So this is in conformance with the sign code. And the sign code does not allow for more than 5 off-site signs facing the same direction of travel within 1 mile of the designated street. Again, I learned a lot from this report. There are currently 3 off-site signs that face East Kellogg within South Webb Road and South Rock Road. So these would be the last 2 that are allowed. I'm gonna skip like the surrounding properties and the case history. I'm just, yeah, it's been a long night. The proposed applications are in conformance with the community investments plan. When we look at the 2035 future growth concept map, it identifies the site primarily to be appropriate for new employment, which is in brown there, and then the pink is commercial. So new employment is defined in the community investments plan as areas that will likely be developed or redeveloped by 2035 with uses that constitute centers or concentrations of employment, primarily with manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, construction, research, technology, business services, or corporate offices. Major shopping centers and office parks will likely be developed in this area as well. The proposed applications are also in conformance with the locational guidelines of the community investments plan. The locational guidelines state that major and commercial and employment centers should be located at intersections of arterial streets and along highways and commercial corridors, which is basically what this applicant is proposing. So for your recommended motions tonight, there needs to be 4 separate motions, 1 for each CUP and 1 for the zone change. So fortunately, 2 of the CUP recommended motions are the same. Because, I mean, we're recommending approval for all of them, but as you can see for the first one, for CUP DP 15, we are recommending that is subject to staff recommended amended CUP language, which is in the report. They have their changes in red, we recommend their changes in blue. The subsequent CUP motions are the same. All of the requirements of the CUP remain in effect unless or until a separate or zoning action is filed. And the applicant will submit for copies of the CUP, the 1 electronic copy within 60 days after approval, blah, blah, blah. And then you have the zone change motion. So staff recommends the zone change from limited commercial to general commercial be approved. And these recommendations are based on the golden rules. I will skip ahead to the last golden rule, opposition or support of neighborhood residents. At the time the staff report was prepared, staff received 2 phone calls requesting more information on the proposed development. One gentleman had concerns with drainage into Gypsum Creek to the west of the subject site as development occurs. And then I have been in conversation with a lady who is concerned about the development as well. And I believe she's here to speak tonight, not naming names, but with that, I will stand for questions, and the agent is also here
And he will, hopefully will be able to answer any questions that I can.
So we're gonna start with questions from the district advisory board members. So do any members have any questions for Christina and or the applicant? Or the agent?
I had a question about the screening, because
Okay.
as I'm looking at this much larger, better map. I can see that there's really not a lot of trees and screening and I don't wanna ever try to tell a landlord or a property owner what to do with their property, but. I mean, that creek goes up pretty close. I mean, there's no attempt at putting any screening between this.
I'm Brian Lindback in AEC Engineering for the North Web Road on behalf of the owner and applicant. I'd like to have you turn 2 pages. This is the original CDP 15. As you can see, this if you know East Wichita a little bit, this used to be a Kmart, and that's what that rectangle represents. So it's long gone. I'm getting to answering your question. So as you might know, the applicant purchased this property from the city of Wichita for a large sum of money recently. And I'll have you turn to the next page. This is a landscape screening plan that was done when the Kmart was approved on that next page. And I actually had one of our landscape architects go out and take a look at all the plant material that's there. And he confirmed that all that plant material is there. There's a few plant species that didn't make the plan, but they're all very healthy and full. So that's one thing he did confirm for me. So for that reason, given that substantial screening that's already there, we didn't recommend putting a wall there because a 6-foot wall is only going to get you this much screening, whereas all these trees and landscaping will generate much better screening pattern for the neighborhood. So I just hopefully that answers your question there.
Your answer was no, there's not gonna be an additional screening.
There's not gonna be a different screening wall. They can certainly add more landscape screening if they like, but we've preserved in the recitals of the CUP amendment, this landscape screening buffer that was presented long ago. I was amazed that it was dated 1966. So interesting.
Any other questions from district advisory board members? And Teresa, anybody online? Can you put the screen back with the
One
I
else.
also have a question, sorry. So I understand that you want to make this one zoning
In one CUP.
in one CUP.
Yes.
Has there been any recommendations on what's gonna be the use of this land?
We don't know exactly. We're gonna let the market kind of push that, but I do know that given the sizable investment in the property, they want a very compatible use. So I think you can think about, restaurants or things that are compatible with, large hotels and of that sort. So I would say that's what you'll probably see is things of that nature.
Like large enough that it's gonna overshadow properties?
I'm not
Like
sure.
the residential area that's right there, is the hotels that are going, are they gonna be so tall that those properties are now in shade all the time?
I don't think that'll be the case. I mean, this existing hotel, if you look on that second to last page, I think I have in there is over 126 feet tall if you add the 200 together there. Well, 122 feet tall, thereabouts. So, and then the very last page has the Marriott signs, the 2 Marriott signs flanking Corporate Hills Drive that we were referring to. So.
Any other questions? Seeing when we'll go out to the public, is there anyone here from the community who wants to ask questions or make comments? Yes. Please join us at the podium and state your name and your address for the record. And if you don't want to go to the podium, you can stay seated.
No, that's all right. I'll go to the podium. Unfortunately, with my hearing loss,
the rapidness of speech and the fact that you do not have any microphones. I have missed 95% of this meeting, but that is on me because I have a hearing loss. Normally, when I attend meetings, I have been in situations similar to this, but there was a microphone available. People were speaking a little slower. I was able to understand their thoughts. And as the owner of the undeveloped land in question that is going to be affected by this proposal, I am very upset. Now, I am depending on my trustee, Matthew Gajewski, Gajewski, to speak to you about my objections. And I do believe that perhaps I wish to express my concern about those proposed new signs on Kellogg. In the fall and in the spring, when there are no leaves on the trees, the people on Bonnie Brae are going to be affected by those huge signs. From day one that was built, when my husband and Phil broke ground for the Marriott Hotel, it was back in the area that it was selected for. The land's been cut up and chopped up in various ways. I still maintain my agricultural classifications because I cannot afford to pay the taxes if my lands are changed. But I'm going to ask Matthew to explain my concerns over this. And when he's finished explaining, if there's anyone else in the room that would like to say something, I hope that they will.
We'll give them the opportunity.
And I would like to come back to the podium and tell you one very important thing, but I'll tell you when everyone else is finished.
And I'm sorry.
Thank you for listening to me. And I'm sorry that I couldn't hear anything that you said. And I'm sure you had some very valid points and questions. And it bothers me that I was totally out of the loop. And when you presented, Christina, you're so rapid and you're so sharp and you did such an outstanding job, but I couldn't understand because I could not hear it.
I'm sorry.
Matthew, please.
Sure.
So Matthew, we say 3 minutes.
Sure.
And Tim will time you, but if you go over a little, it's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Matthew Gajewski. I am a trustee of the Maxwell Family Trust. And we have been reading and analyzing the staff report that was just reviewed. Thank you very much for presenting this. Brian, thank you very much for your graphics that were very insightful. If I could, Teresa, if you could maybe pan into CUP 116, please. That is on page 26 of the PDF. So yes, so essentially our understanding is that, and if you could zoom in a little bit, please, on this, so we can see what's going on there. So if you, yes, a little bit up. What is happening here is what was presented for approval is essentially removal of site number 6, which is the grayed out area. That's the Marriott Hotel, and there is an adjacent parking lot to the left of it. So what we are essentially retaining here in this 116 is the parcel to the left of the Marriott, which is parcel 7. That is essentially, there's a retention pond in that area. And there is, this side encompasses approximately 10 acres with the 2.5 acres that is developable. That's where we're pointing it out right there in that area. Our additional parcel in ownership is parcel 4. This is a 2.5 acre plot of land across from the United States Post Office, which is parcel 5. Parcel 5 is also in this area. Now parcel 4, 4A, that's the Hampton Inn, Comfort Inn, and then there's a credit union financial facility, right? To the north of it, you've got the Suites, Radisson Suites, and then you have the large 10-acre parcel on Webb Road, off of Webb Road,
which is the essentially, agricultural use of that land. And then parcel 1, which is 101 Douglas Webb, office building, right? So that's what's in this, CUP. So now, if we're entertaining a removal of the Marriott Hotel and essentially adding it to 15 down south, obviously there's benefits to Ruffin Properties from that, which were stated. I think primary benefit that is not clearly stated but is implied is that Ruffin will gain significant visibility from the Kellogg frontage road, where large signs could be put in to increase throughput of traffic and activities to the Marriott Hotel. So that's the benefit. So now, what are really the benefits to other landowners in 116? Are there any that are remaining? We're talking about benefits to the applicant, but what about the benefits to the remaining stakeholders in 116, right? So we have not identified any benefits to us. We have identified some risks to us, possibly connected with this removal of the land and putting it into CUP 15. Specifically, currently we have on parcel 7, we have a shared access with the Marriott Hotel. So there's a shared road that allows us access to parcel 7. Without that road, we are at risk of being landlocked, okay? So we want to make sure that if this proposal is approved, is given green light, we want to make sure that we maintain this shared access. This is very important for us not to lose it, right? So access is number 1. Number 2, there are existing covenants in place between the Maxwells and the Ruffin Properties between 7 and 6 that essentially allow us this access, right? So there's covenants documents, I don't know if they have been presented, there's language up there, I was talking about this free access. And also there is a shared pond, detention pond that is behind the Marriott that is shared between parcel 7 and 6. So with this removal of essentially Marriott land and adding it to a different CUP, we want to make sure that that maintenance agreement stays in effect and is not undisturbed. We have not seen evidence of that in the application. And lastly, part of this removal, we also want to make sure that we do not lose the existing use of the land, okay? So this is gonna be, Marriott is gonna get switched to general commercial, GC, which is high intensity, essential use. We have agricultural classification on that back parcel, so we also.
Pardon me,
yes.
Matthew. We have agricultural classification on the 10 acres on Webb Road. And I'm sorry, but I have been very sick and I'm losing my voice. So we have agricultural there. I have agricultural over here. No, I'm sorry, on 4, okay?
Yeah.
And I have agricultural classification on all of 7. Now you will note that on your maps, that there is a line from this point down here. When that division was made, it left me, I shouldn't say me, it left my husband and the Maxwell family, the dam, the pond, 2.5 developable acres, and that was it. Now, this proposal is going to remove one of my covenants. And is also, there isn't, I'm sorry, I'm so tired and I'm well over 80 years of age. And I have to tell you that there is a jogging path that the Marriott insisted be on this land.
Around the detention pond.
Around the retention pond. And I had an agreement that was supposed to be maintained. I've had to clean it. I haven't repaved it. I know I sound very angry. I don't mean to because my voice is bothering me right now, but I have to tell you that obligation has not been fulfilled. I have had to pay people to take out the lumber from all the exercise equipment that has gone to rot. I've had to try to take out the metal so that if somebody is walking out there, I don't get sued. There's been no cooperation on that factor, and it's not mentioned in this proposal.
And
I'll sit down, thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Unfortunately, I don't think that agreement has anything to do with this and what we're looking at.
I understand that, and I understand it completely, but you need to know that I'm gonna lose my access to my land. And that is very important to me.
And so and thank you, sir, appreciate your comments. Christina and or the agent for the applicant. I heard a couple things, there's a maintenance agreement and then access to property. So can you maybe address those concerns?
Sure. I think this is overarching, I mean, this goes for any case. If there are private covenants, private agreements of record.
Ryan, could you please speak up a little bit?
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure, I was just stating that for this case and for any case, a zoning case, if there are private agreements of record, private access agreements, for example, or covenants, this body nor the city council, they don't regulate private covenants. They regulate these public rules that we've set forth on the PUD.
And so Brian, I always say, explain things to me and from the bench, I always say, explain things like you would if you were talking to your neighbor at the mailboxes.
Yeah.
Right? So if there are agreements between Ruffin, who owns this property, the applicant, and the Maxwell family trust or whatever it may be, none of that is dissolved, none of that's changed. It's actually none of our concern.
That's right.
Because it's between two private entities and we are the city of Wichita.
Correct.
So when the speaker had concerns about maybe losing access to her property, that has nothing to do with this evening or the discussion. Is that correct?
To a certain degree, but I will say in the provisions of the CUP, we went from 4 provisions to like 18 or something like that. We do have cross lot access as a requirement, and they'll have to also provide circulation plans, not only for vehicular circulation, but also to pedestrian circulation plans. We've included that. And so as the development goes forward, they'll have to provide those documents to the planning department for review and approval. Furthermore, I would just point out that Corporate Hills Drive is a private street. It's not a public road. Most people wouldn't know that. You go to a post office, you think you're driving on a public road, but it's a private road. So there are private access easements platted. So those are provided in private, I'm certain of private covenants and of that sort. But this is a zoning matter. We're trying to get the land uses situated. We're trying to generate signage that's appropriate for a highway development. I modeled a lot of the signage that you see in here off of other projects that we've done, such as over at the Plazio development at K96. It's right up against a highway as well. So it has similar sign heights as well as over, the mall. We've already talked about that. So the signage is very important to this project. Commercial land is benefiting greatly by signage, and that's quite frankly the main premise for doing this project of getting not only the housekeeping exercise of cleaning all these things up, but also for the creating the right signage conditions for this development.
Yeah, Brian, could I interject, please? So, could you comment on maintaining the existing use of the land and whether or not removal of parcels from a CUP has an impact on other use of the land for those properties that remain in the original CUP? Is there a risk over there that we're omitting, or there's no risk and it's really clear?
I don't see any risk to the adjoining CUPs as far as land uses changing. We've actually increased the potential for certain land uses with this zoning matter. So I think if anything, it broadens the appeal to some folks in the CUPs. And I tried to add in the additional reciprocal signage since we're amending 3 CUPs. I tried to amend that into the provisions with staff is denying that, but I think it makes sense, given especially that we have existing signage, that, I think that would be a very beneficial thing to have for folks such as parcel 7, which is kind of hidden back there. I think having signage along a highway corridor or the potential for signage along a highway corridor would be very beneficial. So, but we'll have to address that in another matter, I'm sure, at a later date.
Are there any other community members here who'd like to make comments? You can go to the.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Jennifer.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Pardon me.
Certainly.
How many landowners are part of these CUP?
Well, as one presiding landowner, and that's Phil Ruffin, he has several companies, as you can imagine. So there's a myriad of landowners, and it's probably not very well represented, but the city of Wichita is also an applicant on this. If you see the green parcel there, we've removed some of the city land from the CUP as part of that, part of this whole process. So that's maybe an anecdotal thing to comment on. But
Yes, seems like 15, to answer your question, seems like 15 is exclusively Ruffin Properties. However, other ones that have mentioned have shared ownership with other members. So there's Maxwell Family Trust, there's other corporations over there who have a stake, have a percentage stake and specifically in 116.
Yes, ma'am, please, if you could state your name and your address.
Um,
And if you were trying to speak louder, so. yeah.
Tara A. Mulligan Shepherd. I live at 268 South Bonnie Brick. So, a few things were mentioned. One was in the application that one of the main benefits of this is that it's one landowner that's kind of getting one speed, like one zoning, but it doesn't sound like that's accurate, as we've kind of heard as people were talking about. Second, I had heard that here that some people from Bonnie Bray had voiced acceptance or that it went well. I did not know of a meeting. I was not told of a meeting. We don't have a functional HOA. Ours is called a historical one, which essentially means they have no power. So we're a very disjointed group. And I know that I'm fairly positive that our annual meeting has not happened this year. The last one, actually, I think that you were at, so, well, the one before the last one. And so all that to say, I don't think this was discussed at an HOA meeting that would have been broadcast to multiple people. I'm not sure who was there, but of my neighbors, they were not. And my neighbors are the ones who are directly abutting against this land. And so I'm kind of here that, as you guys have mentioned, and the planner had mentioned that this is a confusing one. I think that came across onto the homeowners and kind of made it so they said, I don't even know what's going on. I don't think that this is something that I would even know how to address. And so that's kind of why you didn't see anybody comment. They didn't know how. I think oftentimes with the larger corporations, with larger entities, try to take advantage of complications so that the poorer, more disjointed groups kind of suffer. And that I understand that is a valid strategy. I'm just saying it's probably not the best for the homeowners in this instance. So if you go to the map, and can we see like the satellite?
Page 28.
Yeah, the satellite version.
Page 28, please.
Thank you. So as you kind of see, there's really only a few houses that are directly across from it and so mine, I actually have 4 windows that go directly and look directly across, and things that you don't see from the satellite view. One, that where we're talking about changing to general industrial is actually a higher elevation than what the houses are. The houses are in a floodplain, so that part is accurate, but where they say that there's not going to be any development, there already are houses in that floodplain. So I think to say that because it's a floodplain, there will be no further houses or something along those lines isn't necessarily true, because we already do have residences in that floodplain. I am one of those residences in the floodplain. I knew going in what I was getting into, but along that line as well is one of the things we're worried about is drainage, because anytime you have, especially since we're considering, once again, elevation, we do have this creek, and industrial services tend to be not as porous as where you would have land and shrubs and things of that nature. So we're worried about drainage going into the creek, and because we're lower, the first place any of that industrial waste, industrial drainage, commercial drainage, any of those would go to our houses. Now, the prior owner to me said that our house in 20 years, the water hasn't ever gotten to there, but this year, the house right next to us, it came up to their back porch. So I think that would exacerbate the issue as far as drainage goes. And one of the reasons that they said that they don't need to, and I'm very against not having the walls in standard things that apply. So I guess one, I would say, I don't think this area needs to be general commercial. I think there's a lot of things that would not be beneficial to homeowners, especially because there's so many things allowed under limited that I don't see a huge benefit compared to, as Matthew was talking about, when you look at the benefits and burdens, who's being burdened, who's being benefited. We have one person benefiting and multiple people that there isn't a benefit, frankly. And so things like rodeo could come in, tattoo and body piercing facilities, equipment sales, storage, outdoor vehicle storage, warehousing, wholesale business services, industrial gas and fuel storage and sales. All of these things would now be allowed right next to residences. Right now, like you look across the creek and it is right there. And they talk about existing, one reason that they should be able to do all of this and not have the retaining wall. So second, I'm against that they shouldn't have the retaining walls or setbacks. Once again, the residents are there. And I know you had mentioned, and sorry, your name tag. Faith, I know you had a question on, well, how substantial is this cover that they talk about? Not substantial. When you're actually there, one, the creek barely ever has water in it. And so we're not talking about a river, we're talking about a tiny creek. And we're talking about, you do have one line of trees, but in any, I think we all know, in any situation where you have development, the first thing you do are those trees. So would we say that, okay, well, you don't have to have any restrictions, you don't have to build up anything, and I think in the proposed amendments, they actually took out setback, the wall and the requirement to put in any shrubbery. And so they would, so essentially they could take all of it out and not put in anything. So we're just looking straight into higher elevation. We're looking straight into whatever commercial use they want there, whether it be gas and storage sales, vehicle storage yard would now be allowed. And also vehicle and equipment sales. And so all of these things would be highlights, high noise, and things that people in the neighborhood would generally be very, I mean, it would change a nuisance. And in addition to that, because we're increasing the nuisance because we're increasing what is reasonable in this zone by saying we're no longer limited, we're now general. So now we've changed, well, what's reasonable in general as far as nuisance goes? It makes it harder for homeowners to have any recourse. So again, I think there's a lot of burdens to other people, benefits to possibly one person.
You're going about 6.5 minutes, so if you could.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
And then
That's
yeah, one last point on, I think on the signage was, so I think under limited, it'd be 30 feet and 300, and they're proposing not even having to do 150, but going down to 75. And again, so where they could possibly go is right across from the creek, because there's current signage, what direction? South of Kellogg, then they could go right across from where the houses would be, and you would have signage that perpetually would have light or what have you, right across from houses. And I think in 1984, homeowners signed a petition against even a 50-foot on-site sign. So the fact that we'd be going against what people already said they didn't want, signed a petition saying that, and not much has changed since 1984 as far as the homeowners go. So as far as where houses are. I think those were my main points. Sorry, I went over.
No, that's okay. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Is there anyone else here from the community who'd like to speak on this issue? Is Adam?
I'm David Mulhagen, father to Tara. And she had asked me to come and address a few issues that she may have not been able to overlook. Now, a little bit earlier on this map, he said, well, all the trees are there except for a few. Well, when I looked on Google Earth, I see a lot missing. You can actually see the hotel from the street that we're talking about, that my daughter, my granddaughter, and my grandson walk through, okay? That's an issue there that I have with him. Another issue is a 50-foot tall sign. He was talking about a 50-foot sign, oh, they've got them all over the place. In commercial, not up against residential. In the town east one, it's not next to Barney Gray, it's not next to residential. It's far away. It's across over by, oh, what? Rusty Headquarters. Their proposal, because one of them light commercial to general commercial. Okay, if he stays with light commercial, he has to stay 300 feet away from residential zoning or use. You go to general commercial and it drops down to 150 or 75 feet. If you take into consideration where the sign, offsite sign is at already, with the city of Wichita, you have to be 330 feet from either side of it when it's brought to center line. When you do that, you're gonna only be over here or over here. Over here, right next to the residential.
Sir,
And it's gonna be 50
if you
feet.
just let us know what pages,
Oh, this isn't on one of your pages.
Okay.
This is mine.
because we can't, no one else can see that, so. And the folks online can't see it either, so.
When you wanna go to this page here, you've got an offsite sign that is right over here. Okay, so you have to be 300 feet away, 330 feet away from it either side. 330 feet brings it right over here. So they can put a sign, billboard sign right over here. And they're asking for general commercial. They're asking that it can be 50 foot overall in height. By city code, you can only be 30 foot overall height. It doesn't matter if it's light commercial, general commercial, or industrial.
We'll have the agent address.
And so those are kind of some of the issues that she wanted to make sure that got covered. Because they're gonna be seeing a 50-foot overall sign from that neighborhood, if they wanna see that going with those. And I stand for questions.
Any question? Think the applicant wanna comment, and then we'll bring the discussion back to the bench, unless there's anyone else from.
So for starters, drainage will be handled with a replatting efforts.
Pardon me, Brian, would you speak a little bit louder, please?
I'll see if I can do that.
Okay.
Drainage will be handled with any replatting efforts. This property does need to be replatted for portions of the development, so that'll be handled in at that time. So as far as the zoning uses, she spoke about rodeo. A rodeo is actually one of the uses that I've excluded from this new CUP, so I think it's important to note that, you know, well, it sounds like she's making some good points, that's not valid at all. We did have a neighborhood meeting. I had reached out to Sam Linderman. I said, just invite whoever you want to come to the meeting, and so he made the list and he invited a number of folks. So we met at the Marriott last Monday and had good conversation. I explained this whole process and no one seemed to have any issues with it. The landscaping, he pointed out on Google Maps, I mean, the landscaping that's there is mature landscaping, and I don't know if this will work, but it's the landscaping that I pointed out to you that was in the landscape documents from 1966. That landscaping is healthy and in good order, and it'd certainly be taller than a 6-foot wall. You talked about the location of the signs, you talked about off-site signs. The only off-site sign that's allowed to be 50 feet is at the intersection of Kellogg and Webb. No other off-site signs would be allowed to that tall. So, and furthermore, it would be on the direct frontage. You can't put an off-site sign back into the development. There's no point in it. What would the point be if anybody, no one would be able to see it? So signage is going to be right on the frontage of the road, and so that's important to know. I think
Where exactly on the frontage of the road? Where the new road was put in that general area, or?
It can be
Could be anywhere.
There's a myriad of ways you could skin this cat as far as signage, but there's a lot of different options for signage on this project. But, you know, the reality is we've set it up so that it's gonna make the project, the property more viable for the community. We want this property developed in a high standard to benefit our community, to have places to go eat, to have places to go frequent. And having good signage is huge, especially to the traveling public who are gonna be coming in from out of state, presumably off of the interstate. So having good signage is crucial for a successful development. And I think the provisions that we put in here are going to do that. It's gonna help it be a more fruitful endeavor. Right now, it's just dirt, so not too fruitful right now, so.
Thank you very much. We'll bring the discussion back to the district. Does anybody else need to?
I have one more comment to make.
Yes, you can make one more comment. Normally you can speak once, but we'll let you make a final comment.
Thank you.
Yes.
The city benefited recently, well, 2021, with $8.7 million payment from Phil for the land that is currently being under discussion, and the Marriott is going to be moved to the CUP, basically. The city made a lot of money on that, $8,700,000. To this day, Maxwell has received zero, not one penny for all that land. Not one penny. We were billed, we were sued, but we never got paid for any of it. And that's why I sound the way I do.
And I'm not sure, ma'am, the city sold the land to Mr. Ruffin.
Then I'm talking about the frontage. The frontage, the bottom area.
Yes.
The frontage area.
Who are you supposed to be paid?
Pardon me?
Who are you supposed to be paid by?
Bill.
That has absolutely nothing
That's
to do
nothing
with
to do with your CUP, and I understand that.
And I
But
just
I
want to make
just
sure
want,
for
you
the
don't even have to consider what I said, but I want you to understand why I am so passionate and why I have tried to keep my land. Because it's so valuable to me. It was valuable to the family. We've had it over 200 years.
And I completely empathize and I'm sorry.
I know
Thank
you do,
for
and I
sharing.
understand that, and Brian knows that I try not to get so upset, but it's very difficult. Because I have gone into their office with other people to try to come up with a development plan for my remaining acreage. And I understand the need for this and the employment that it will bring, and that's important for your community. I have moved here. I just bought a home here. I'm getting out of New York, and he's already moved in. I'm in your district too. I'm in Willow Bend. I am going to be a citizen in this state and getting out of New York. But because I've been in New York and in San Francisco where I was born, this has all gone on. And it just has been creeping and creeping and creeping. And changes have been made that I know are going to be beneficial to the city, which you must consider and put at the top of the line. But I just want you to know why I am bitter.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. And welcome to Wichita. Welcome to District 2. We're certainly glad to have you here. I just need to make sure that when the District Advisory Board is making a decision, agreements between private entities have no bearing on this. The
That's
only
correct.
thing we're deciding this
That's
evening
correct.
is
100%. Thank you.
is this the best use of the land? And you all have copies of the golden rules in front of you. Sorry for the folks who are online, but I know you've seen them a million times because we always have them here. So this evening, there's been a lot of private agreements brought up. All of that has to kind of be taken out of factor, and we're only looking at, is this an appropriate use of the land, right? So this is gonna be tricky because we have to have 4 independent votes.
One quick statement. It was said that the offsite signs are only going to be along Webb Road. According to this, they're going to be on Kellogg. So it would be in the area where I stated.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right,
So thoughts from the district advisory board? I know it's been a long night, but.
So my thoughts are just trying to balance what can be developed under limited commercial versus commercial. So like restaurants and different things that bring vibrancy can all be developed under limited. But there's some kind of undesirable items that can be developed under commercial, like the storage units and different things, and the equipment sales and automobile sales. That doesn't bring vibrancy to an area, so I'm just trying to understand use, and I think for me, it would be better if the applicant could have had a vision, sold us out a vision of what the intended use would be. That's kind of where I'm struggling.
I would like to ask her one clarification. You mentioned in your report about the air zone.
The airport hazard zone.
Okay, when the Marriott was built, my husband took me to the top floor and I was told that the southeast corner of the Marriott Hotel at 11 stories is 3 inches below the flight cone that was originally Beechcraft. Now, I don't understand where all of a sudden, after this hotel was built way back in 87, why the air industry or the aviation control board would say that there's a problem with height out there, because the Marriott is 11 stories.
And I'm gonna have to ask.
3
that
inches.
The community discussion is done, and that's an FAA issue. That has nothing to do with us or. the
But it's in
decision.
it's in her report.
She just brought it up for kind of information, but the FAA would make all of those decisions, not just.
Right, I understand that.
So, Christina, did you want to address Jennifer's thoughts, comments?
Limited commercial versus general.
Yeah, so, I should have put a table in this report, and that's my mistake of seeing like what is permitted and limited and what is permitted in general. But, you know, specific uses have to be either specifically allowed or permitted within the CUP. So with this specific zone change, she's saying what is prohibited in general or within that CUP. So as it stands right now, you know, there are, as she mentioned during public comment, there are some other uses that are currently, or if approved, they're going to be allowed within the CUP. So warehousing would be considered a permitted use. Vehicle and equipment sales would be considered a permitted use within general commercial zoning. So vehicle and equipment sales is permitted in limited commercial, normally with a conditional use. So as the CUP 15 stands right now, vehicle and equipment sales, that would actually require a public hearing, because it's not listed as a specific use within the CUP.
I have a list of the differences, if anyone, I did actually create a list.
So, Steve, as we move forward, do you, as staff, have, so there's 3 CUPs and there's some.
Yes.
The staff recommendations were in.
For CUP 15, and that pertains to the offsite signage provision that is on page. It's in blue on page 12. So it would be crossed out.
So I just want to make sure I understand and everyone understands. So for the zoning, staff did not have any, staff approved.
Staff recommended approval of the zone change, that's correct.
Okay. And then for the other CUPs, it was just the one at the 3 that they had.
Yeah, so we have our own recommended staff language for CUP DP 15, which is on this page here. And then for CUP DP 48 and for 116, we are in agreement with the applicant.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understand.
Page 11, plan uses. If I read this correctly, everything within a general commercial district zoning, it's allowed by right. Will be allowed except for this list
Yeah,
of uses that are typically allowed by right, but will not be allowed in this. Which is
you got it.
B, uses that are permitted by CUP. Conditional use permit. Under the city zoning ordinances will not be allowed at all. There will be no, the uses permitted by the by the CUP are those uses permitted by right and
Yes.
not by conditional use.
Yeah, so there are additional uses in general commercial that normally
There are
require
conditional
conditional
uses.
use. Yeah, so
I
if they
read
want
this
to
as
amend
saying
that,
though that you could not get a conditional use permit in this particular zoning class, that they're ruling out.
I can assist if you'd like.
sure, well, I was gonna say, you know, the uses that normally require a conditional use are not permitted within the CUP unless they do a CUP amendment.
Okay, that's fine. That'll be more difficult than doing a regular
Yeah.
conditional use.
Right.
Although the process is the same. Yeah.
Okay. So. We have the zoning change, we have CUP 15, CUP 48, and CUP 116.
Yes.
And staff had recommendations for changes in 15. So the district advisory board tonight has to decide what we want to do with zoning. If we want to pass or not. We have to decide if for CUP, I'm just stating this so everybody's on the same page. For CUP 15, there's probably 3 options. We could approve as it is, we could approve the staff recommendation, or we could deny. And then for CUP 48 and CUP 16, approve or deny.
Right.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, does that help everybody a little bit? Maybe everybody was there, but I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page.
Hey Becky, I have a question.
Yes, Chris, hear me.
Hey, can you clarify, I guess, the comments that were made about the Bonnie Bray HOA, whether it exists or not, and who was notified? Do you have the history of that? Or
The only thing I can let you know is that the applicant asked me who at Bonnie Bray would be the best person to reach out to. And Sam, who is the representative from Bonnie Bray, not that there's a representative from Bonnie Bray, but he lives in Bonnie Bray, he's on this meeting, the district advisory board. He always reaches out to me about the annual meeting or anything else with Bonnie Bray. He's the main contact that I have there. And so I gave the agent the contact information, but then knowing my role, I have to remain neutral, stepped out. And I knew there was a meeting happening, but I intentionally didn't attend. And so the meeting then was scheduled between Sam, our district advisory board member, and the agent for the applicant. Does that help, Chris?
well, kind of, but so part of the rules is that the HOA representative gets notified with these notifications. Is that still correct? So do we know who that went to, and if so?
Within the notification area. So who was notified through this, Christina?
So everyone within 1,000 feet of the CUP, what they're proposing to be CUP 15. Was notified formally through the city.
And so that's on page 22.
And it was also explained to me though, but the HOA, if one of those homes in that notification area was a member of an HOA, that HOA would get notified.
I don't think they have a formal HOA, Chris.
Okay, so then that comment is correct, that there is no HOA that would have been notified for this?
There is an HOA, but.
I would have to look into that. I know that we have it in our system. Chris, can I email you about that?
Well, I think it applies to whether I think this was notified correctly and how I'm gonna
So
vote.
even if the HOA wasn't notified, everyone within the notification area was.
So even if the city didn't follow its own notification rules, that's okay?
No, we have to follow notification rules.
We sent it to those who were in the notification area, correct?
Yes, that is required by state law.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is the HOA is also supposed to be notified by the city ordinance, is that not correct? Or policy or whatever the word is?
It may be policy, but it's not statutory. The HOA, I sit on an HOA, and we've had some zoning issues as an HOA. And as an HOA, we convene property owners, but we do not lobby City Hall or the planning department on a specific zoning case such as this, because our membership has different levels of stake in that issue. For example, using Bonnie Bray, these people in the yellow area who should likely have been notified in writing by snail mail, but not by certified mail. They would have received a notice of public hearing. Those outside would not, those to the west would not, and likely would have less interest in what's going on in this particular project, because they would be less impacted either positively or negatively by this project. So when we as an HOA deal with something like this, we convene, we let people talk, we provide information and contacts, and so that they can individually call Councilwoman Tuttle here. But we as an HOA do not contact her about these issues because we do not represent the entire neighborhood. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that, and I get that. What I'm saying is the city has told me that as the HOA rep in my neighborhood, anything in my HOA, the HOA also gets notified.
It's not statutory, I think it's our policy. Christina, do you know if anything was sent directly to the HOA in this case?
Well,
I can speak to that.
Do you have the notification?
I have the notification, but I think more importantly, I reached out to the members, Sam Linderman, who reached out to others in the neighborhood. So I mean, and that's not a statutory requirement. That's not a city requirement. That's a requirement that we imposed on ourselves to reach out to the neighborhood and get some dialogue going, so we could understand if there was a concern, so we can address it. But no concerns were brought to us. There were 6 members of the neighborhood there present, and
you didn't have to have the meeting.
no, we didn't. But I guess my point is, I did notify them personally, and we had a meeting and discussed this case personally. And if they want to distribute information from what they learned, they had a week to do. Well, they still have a week and a half to do so. And I would be happy to meet with the neighborhood again. If you want me to meet with the neighborhood again, I would be happy to. So.
Yes.
So Christina, what about some others?
Sir, the discussion now that the district advisory board, thank you.
So I try really hard to stay within the golden rules, because I think it's a good way to direct us. But what I'm concerned, because when I look at like number 2 and number 3 and number 8, you know, I usually don't have that many golden rules that we don't normally hear from property owners, and when residents come, we listen to them. And I'm just really concerned that there's that many questions in this, and also how complicated this is for those of us that make these decisions all the time. As a resident, I don't know that necessarily they understand it. You come with much more knowledge than I ever would have to it. But I'm really concerned about the general commercial to limited commercial. I still don't understand how that is gonna benefit everyone versus what they can already do with limited commercial. And I'm also really concerned about that screening. I'm always gonna stand up for the homeowners here, because that's just, I live in a neighborhood where it wasn't considered, and we have signs all over the place that are, I'm concerned about that.
Don't forget to include landowners too.
Sir, thank you. The discussion is with the district advisory board now. Teresa?
Okay. Tracy says, I move that we do not approve the recommended action. There's too much confusion around it, and Chris Broderick has seconded that.
so for Tracy and then for Chris for the second, we still have to vote on all four of them individually.
Yes,
Correct.
there needs to be 4 separate motions.
4 separate motions, so Tracy, to have you refine your motion, if you can let us know what your motion was for, was it for zoning, the zoning case?
So 2367.
2367, is that right?
She said for zoning.
2367,
Correct.
okay. So Tracy, can you read Tracy's motion now?
Well, she said it's for the zoning. She didn't restate her motion.
That's 2367.
So everybody understand what Tracy's motion is then for the zoning case? And Chris, does your second remain?
Yes.
Yes. We have a motion and a second is for the zoning for 230007. Is there any discussion from the district advisory board?
I wholeheartedly agree. The zone change is so confusing. I think I would agree with the stated motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then I'll call the vote. So you are voting to deny the zoning change. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Chris and Tracy, and if we still got Alicia, Tracy, can you do full screen?
The only two are Chris and Tracy.
Okay, we still have four. So Chris and Tracy and Chris, how do you vote? Aye or nay?
Aye.
They vote.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay, those,
Okay.
nay, okay, so
Opposed.
thank you. And you are also opposed? So it's 4-2 to deny. Okay,
Question before the next vote.
yeah, question before the next vote.
How does, let's say we are voting as, the planning commission, how does, the denial of zoning amendment affect the CUPs? Can the CUPs move forward without the change in zoning?
That is a question that I'll have to look into, because if you look at the general provisions for what is it allowed, specifically page 11,
Yeah.
3 land uses, that will have to be revised.
We are not voting on 3 other CUPs then. Or we're making a recommendation that they go back.
It's a recommendation anyway. I asked her in terms of if we're the planning commission, would the planning commission be able to take the next 3 votes? Because if they can't take the next 3 votes after denying the zoning, there may be no point in our voting on these next 3.
They can.
And keep in mind, this is advisory and the MAPC can say, they can approve the zoning as stated, right? So we need to do our vote and then let them proceed with theirs, correct? So would the next logical step then be for CUP 15?
Yes, you can do that.
Okay, so if we look at CUP 15, there's 3 options. It can be approved as is, it can be approved with staff recommendations, or it can be denied.
Yes.
So it's open for discussion from the district advisory board. And the staff's recommendations were regarding signage.
Correct.
Screening is part of the CUP as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. That screening that I discussed, that would be on 15.
For CUPTV 15, it would be page 11.
Thank you. Practice that.
You're doing great. Okay.
Okay, then I guess I will make a motion that we deny CUP 15, or I guess, let me say this, that we approve CUP 15 if they put in a screen wall.
So are you approving or are you approving the staff recommendations?
Oh,
Just so I
approving with
clarify.
staff recommendations, but also
And-
put in the screen, and put in the screen.
Because of the elevation difference, will that screening wall matter?
I mean, the residents have said, yeah,
This is
so,
you.
Okay, sorry, sir.
I mean, I will most likely ask for a screening wall most times, I mean, I haven't, it's not like I haven't asked for a screening wall before and been denied, but, I think it's just important to.
So there is a motion to approve
With
with staff recommendations and a screening wall. Is there a second?
We need to understand this.
So just so I have it clear, I'm sorry.
No,
Let me
please.
interrupt. Would you like the screening to be per the unified zoning code?
I'm sorry, y'all, we can't hear you. I'm
Will the
sorry.
unified
I'm so
zoning
sorry.
code
It's okay, you're fine.
address their screening concerns?
Yes. Screening concerns.
All right? I mean,
Just a little.
will it be sufficient? I mean, yeah, I doubt the sufficiency of the wall. Given the grades here, and the height of the building anyway. And the likelihood of more hotels going in along Kelly.
It's not just for visibility though, it's also for noise.
But, well, you can get both with, landscape with trees. And you can get a whole lot more of that with using landscaping and trees, which is what was done originally. And which I can see is, then. That's what the difference between the two of you on the adequacy of the buffer here. But can you wield the unified zoning code, landscaping code in a way to address their concerns? That would work better than putting in 6-foot concrete wall.
Sorry, that's a very good question. You put me on
You
the
know, I'm
spot.
asking them.
Yeah,
It's hard.
it's okay.
I
Are you asking for my opinion as a member of the planning staff, or is it more of a rhetorical question?
No, it's not a rhetorical question. I'm with Faith on buffering.
Sure.
I just feel that the wall she's recommending is not going to do anything but cost them a lot of money. It's not gonna make these folks any more satisfied with either the oral or the visual buffer.
Sure. Okay.
So we have a motion for staff recommendation with a screening wall. Do we need a friendly amendment to further define what that screening wall looks like?
No, I don't want, I'm gonna take that back then,
You're
because
gonna
I
withdraw
don't
your
want
motion.
it, I think I am okay with the wording where it's, you said again?
The staff's recommendation with
For
the
the
second.
unified
For the
zoning code.
unified code. I'm okay with that because typically that code does cover most people's things, so.
So
it
can you
would-
restate your?
I
motion?
will, that we approve CUP 15 with staff recommendations. And add landscaping and screening in accordance with the city of Wichita. What did you say? again?
Unified zoning.
Unified
code.
zoning code.
And then landscaping is per the Wichita landscape ordinance.
Thank you.
Yes.
Teresa, do you have that?
Can
Okay,
you say it one more time?
can you say it one more
I
time?
will say it one more time, I'll do my best to repeat it. To approve CUP 15 with staff recommendations and to include landscape and screening per the city of Wichita landscape ordinance and the unified zoning code.
And there's a second from Kim, is that correct?
Yes.
Is there discussion, and Chris and Tracy, I'm watching you, any discussion from the district advisory board?
None for me, thanks.
Thank you, Tracy. All right, seeing no further discussion, I will call the vote. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? So that passes. Oh, so Chris, you were opposed?
Correct.
Okay, so it passes 5-1. You got that, Teresa? Okay, now we're gonna go to CUP 48. There were no staff recommendations,
Correct.
so we will either vote to approve
Or
or
deny.
to.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Tim. Is there discussion from the district advisory board on the motion to approve?
I'm sorry, DP 48, you're recommending the signs for DP 48.
Correct.
I don't wanna mess up.
No, any further, no, very
So-
good.
So we're voting on the signs for the use that we did not approve? In
So
case
you-
it goes through the city? Approved?
Christina can explain.
So essentially what CUP DP 48 entails, which is part of, oh gosh, okay, so this is for. Technically it's for CUP 2343 pertaining to CUP number 48. And what that action is to remove land from that CUP to add it to 15. So removing land from the CUP is a zoning action.
Just an editorial comment. I've been doing this 5 years, and as I mentioned, 5 years before, and this is the most complicated case I've ever seen, ever. Yeah, so, okay, so I'm glad I didn't write it either. So CUP 48, we had a motion, correct? And we had a second. And Chris had a question. Chris, do you feel like you had your question answered?
Yeah, it's answered, sure.
Thank you. So, any other discussion? We'll call the vote. So there's a motion to approve all those 48, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So,
Well,
any
I
opposed?
don't- Yeah, Chris is opposed.
Chris is opposed, so motion carries again.
Oh, I was
No.
opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was also opposed.
So I think we good.
I'm so sorry, I heard
I
that.
was opposed.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So 2, and Tracy?
Not, I said aye for approve.
3 and 3? Okay. Why would? And last, CUP 116, no staff recommendations, so we have the option for a motion to approve or deny.
Yes.
Correct.
And again, this is removing land from 116 to add it to 15.
Okay, then I will make a motion to deny for the same reason that we denied
Okay,
the zoning.
motion to deny, is there a second?
A second.
There's a second on the motion. Any discussion?
That's right.
So a vote for a denial is to deny it, correct?
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes.
Very
If they don't have to, if they provide any comments or questions from the discussion?
I mean, I made this motion because we denied the zoning. Which is also why I voted no on the last one.
Okay, any other further discussion? Seeing none, we call the vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Tracy?
Opposed.
You're opposed, so another 3-3, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be at MAPC Thursday, we'll see how this goes. Christina, thank you. Thank you to everyone who was here to speak today. MAPC is Thursday at 1:30. I can't tell you exactly where it's gonna be on the agenda, but I'll try to get it. It's at the very end, of course. It is. Of course it is. Okay, thank you to everyone for being here this evening. MAPC.
Oh, yeah, we have-
You said one more thing, I know. Oh, yeah, but I'm assuming they don't want to stay, so, yeah. But MAPC is on Thursday at 1:30. And you know where it is?
Is that city council?
No, Ronald Reagan Office Building.
Okay.
Oh, Brian.
Right, yep. So last item, a new business, item 12, zoning 2023 00063.
I just want to say, Adam, thank you so much for waiting. I really appreciate it. So this is, zoning case zone 2023-00063. The applicant is requesting a zone change from GO General Office to LC Limited Commercial District at 1705 South Webb Road. The subject site is 0.75 acres in size and is currently undeveloped. And the applicant is requesting this zone change to develop a restaurant on the site. Limited commercial district generally permits more uses than GO zoning. Teresa, if we could just go to the zoning map, please. I just want to show everything that you see in red is limited commercial. And then everything you see in dark green is general office. Everything in light green is multifamily. So yeah, there will be no changes to the minimum lot area, minimum lot width, front and rear setback or interior side setback. However, there will be, if the zone change request is approved, there will be an increase in maximum building height from 60 to 80 feet. Sign regulations for the Wichita Sign Code, they're generally less restrictive in LC zoning than in GO zoning. And because the site is requesting a zone change and there's new construction on site, the property will need to adhere to the criteria set forth by the Wichita Landscape Ordinance, and details of that are listed in your report. The character of the neighborhood is commercial. It's on South Webb Road. Everything you see in red there is already limited commercial. So in 1989, Wichita City Council approved a zone change from what is now SF5 to General Office District, and the subject site was platted in 1990. The requested zoning is in conformance with the Community Investments Plan. When we take a look at the 2035 Wichita Future Growth Concept Map, it is mostly designated for new employment development. The proposed additional permitted uses are not out of the character with the commercial development along South Webb Road. Based upon the information available at the time the staff report was prepared, staff recommends approval of the zone change request. And this recommendation is based on our golden rules. At the time the staff report was prepared, staff has not received any public comment regarding the zone change. And this went to MAPC on November 30th and was approved on consent unanimously. And with that, I will stand for questions. If not, the applicant is here to answer any questions that I may not be able to answer.
Questions?
What kind of restaurant's gonna be?
What kind of restaurant are you supposed to?
Chicken restaurant.
Well, I make a motion to approve it.
I'm as big as Chick-fil-A.
What is the address?
It is 1705 South Webb Road.
It's right by, we just rezoned an area a few months ago, or 6 months ago. For restaurants.
We already have a motion on the floor.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay, it's a chicken restaurant.
And second now.
So we have a second, Tim, just keep going.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what is going there.
It's a chicken restaurant.
Is it fast food? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be
QSR.
detailed.
Yes.
Yes. Any other comments or questions?
No.
Any from the public?
I hope you get bigger than Chick-fil-A.
All right. That being said, we'll take the vote. All in favor of approving this zoning amendment? Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Well, there you have it, a unanimous approval.
I'm so sorry, I had to step out.
No, it's been a long meeting.
Yeah, so, yeah, one final thing, first of all, thank you to everyone for hanging in here this long. This was probably the most complicated meeting I've ever seen, ever. And just a note, the next district advisory board meeting will not be Monday, January 8th, because we will have the swearing in ceremony for council members and mayor. So we will be meeting on Wednesday, January 10th, right here at 6:30. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. A second? Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Thank you, Christina. Thank you.